Chapter 607. I will live well. Mosia. Don't worry, although I am not a good mother, I understand what you mean. Dongfang Wen Xian sobbed sadly and said, not to mention that you've given me a glimmer of hope today. Even if there's no hope, I will not seek death again. Mother wants to see you grow up, to see you shake the world, to see you and your wife have children. Mother also wants to see you take revenge for your father. Revenge. I have not taken my revenge yet. How can I seek death again? In Dongfang Wen Xian's eyes, a terrifying flame of hatred shot out. In her tears, the deep hatred seemed to be burning fiercely. Your eldest brother and second brother, how did they die? Jun Moxie closed his eyes and said with hatred, Blizzard's Silver City. Shao Clan. Even. Third uncle Jun Wui was plotted against by the Shao clan, and was almost permanently disabled, unable to walk for 10 years. Shao family. Dongfang Wen Xian let out a shrill scream. The hatred of killing my husband and son. Shao clan. I'll leave for the Silver Blizzard City as soon as I've recovered from my injuries. Jun Moxie's eyes were burning with hatred. What's a mere oath? The Sword Peak should collapse. The Shao clan should be exterminated. You? Dongfang Wen Xian had just recovered from her anger, but she suddenly became worried. Mosia, don't be impulsive. This matter can be discussed at length. You must be fully prepared. As she said this, she suddenly burst into tears again. Mosia, I can only rely on you now. Don't be impulsive. If anything happens to you, I will really have no hope of living anymore. If taking revenge will put you in danger, I would rather not take revenge. Mother, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'll try my best to take care of myself. Jun Moxie was moved and said, if I didn't have absolute confidence, I would never act rashly. Mother only has Mosia by her side, and Mosia also only has mother by his side, then I'm relieved. Nodding lightly, Dongfang Wen Xian seemed to be a bit bashful. Her face turned red as she asked in a low voice, Mosia, tell me the truth. Can your father, really, come back to life? Her voice was filled with anticipation and uneasiness. She was worried about personal gains and losses, and it was obvious that she had reached her limit. I promise. If there's anything that I'm hiding from you, just call me. Jun Moxie raised his hand and said solemnly. Dongfang Wen Xian hurriedly covered his mouth with her hand and shook her head in panic. No need to swear. I believe you. Mother really believed it. Really? Jun Moxie heaved a long sigh of relief in his heart. In the next few days, Jun Moxie's body was obviously getting better, and Dongfang Wen Xian's emotions were also getting more and more stable. She even took down all the portraits of Jun Wuhui in the room and put them away carefully. In her eyes, the endless sorrow had mostly disappeared, and what replaced it was sincere hope. With regards to this white lie, Jun Mosia felt a little guilty. But more than that, he felt an indescribable joy. Living with hope. Even if it was an extremely faint hope. It was still better than despair. On this day, in the hall of the Dongfang family. The old lady, the three Dongfang brothers, Jun Moxie, Mei Shuyan, and Dongfang Wen Xian were all sitting there. Dongfang Wen Xian sat beside her son, and from time to time, she would raise her head to look at her son, and there would be a doting smile on her face. It seemed that no matter where her son was, no matter how old he would still be the naked baby that she held in her arms. The old lady's complexion had also obviously improved. Her daughter had woken up, and her will to die was gone. She was full of vitality. The unexpected arrival of her grandson this time really brought too many surprises, and he even brought a granddaughter-in-law, and such a powerful granddaughter-in-law. The old lady had been smiling a lot these days, and the knot in her heart was gone. Moreover, Jun Moxie used his spiritual power to soothe her body, and she seemed to have become 10 years younger all of a sudden. The capable, domineering, and fierce aura that she had in the past had returned to her. At this time, the old lady was looking through a thick pile of intelligence from the outside world. She frowned and seemed to be looking for something. All these years, the communication between the Dongfang family and the outside world was completely based on these intelligence reports. Finally, she coughed and took out a set of intelligence reports. She said, "There are a few important news here. Everyone, please be careful. Although we are not in the martial world, there are still some people who go out to deal with the necessary things occasionally. Some situations must be reported to all the juniors in the family, in case you cause big trouble. If you provoke someone that you shouldn't provoke." The three Dongfang Wenqing brothers agreed in unison. The old lady looked at Jun Moxie and said meaningfully, "Xia, you can't stop running around in the martial world. You should know that there are some things that you shouldn't provoke recklessly. No matter how strong you are, there will always be someone stronger. Do you understand?" Jun Moxie was startled. He didn't know what his grandmother meant, but since the elders had spoken, he could only agree first. A few days ago, there were many battles. The three Holy Lands sent out a total of 90 experts to encircle the number one person of Tian Fa, Venerable Mei, dozens of times. But in the end, they suffered heavy losses and suffered great losses. The strength of the Beast King of Tian Fa, Venerable Mei, is really amazing. I believe that even the people in charge of the three Holy Lands are no better than him." When the old lady said this, Jun Moxie suddenly coughed violently. Mei Shuiyan also opened her eyes wide in shock. Her pretty eyes looked around suspiciously. When she heard the last sentence of the old lady, her face turned red, and she pursed her lips and lowered her head. Jun Moxie almost thought that the old lady was purposely joking with them, right? The Venerable Mei, who was encircled, is sitting in front of you right now. Everyone here is family, there's no need to praise him like this. The old lady glared at him and said to everyone, "This matter is a huge whirlpool. You must pay attention. Once you step into it, not to mention the Dongfang family, even if all the aristocratic families in the world join together, they won't be able to escape the fate of being annihilated. Mother, is the battle between the three Holy Lands and the Tian Fa forest so important? I only knew about the existence of the three Holy Lands the last time I went to Tian Fa. I also saw a few of the seniors of the three Holy Lands. The three Holy Lands are naturally very powerful, but to say that the three Holy Lands can resist all the aristocratic families in the world, isn't that a little too much?" Dongfang Wenqing said in bewilderment. Moreover, that Venerable Mei has the air of a gentleman. After the last battle in the southern Heaven City, Tian Fa's side had already gained the upper hand. But, they still chose to withdraw their troops in the end. It's clear that they don't want to be enemies with the humans. In fact, it can even be said that they are magnanimous. I really don't understand why the three holy and one ferocious would fight like that. What do you know? First of all, the strength of the three Holy Lands that you've seen is only the tip of the iceberg. The true strength of the three Holy Lands is much, much more terrifying than what you can imagine. Secondly, let's not talk about the Venerable Mei, but there must be some other reason behind this. A battle of this level is not something that ordinary Xian cultivators can come into contact with. Just a touch and you'll die. Don't think that you'll be fine just by watching from afar. Let me tell you clearly, the moment you meet with something like this, run as far as you can. Put away your pitiful heart of righteousness. In a battle like this, your heart of righteousness is just a joke. And the most tragic joke. The old lady reprimanded mercilessly. The two of you are the same. The old lady looked at Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan coldly and warned, although your current strength is not bad, but, it's better to stay far away from the matter of the three Holy Lands surrounding Venerable Mei. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan looked at each other and smiled bitterly. If we had a choice, we would definitely choose to run away, but, we are the people involved, how can we run away? But, how did this information come about? Why did they only mention Venerable Mei and not Jun Moxie? And not even mention the Jun family? Isn't this too ridiculous? This intelligence work is too much of a failure. Also, Venerable Mei is currently working together with the Supreme Assassin, Chu Chihuan, to deal with the Three Holy Lands pursuit and launch a bloody revenge. The old lady sighed, that Chu Chihuan is known as the Supreme Assassin, but he's a ghost of a generation, always appearing and disappearing like a ghost, killing people without leaving a trace. But to go against the Three Holy Lands like this, he's overestimating himself. Even if he's lucky enough to gain the upper hand occasionally, how can the Three Holy Lands' 10,000 years of accumulation be easy to deal with? How can a mere Chu Chihuan be able to resist them? To get involved so recklessly, you'll just lose your life for nothing. If Chu Chihuan could hear the old lady's evaluation, he would definitely cry bitterly. Heavens, earth! Only a bastard would want to get involved in this matter. How would I know what was going on? How could I be so muddle-headed that disaster fell from the sky? I've been chased for so long, and I still haven't figured out the reason until now, but, since Venerable Mei has already left the Tianfa forest, and the battle in Tiannan, our Dongfang family's oath has already been broken by half. What's left, is the collapse of the Sword Peak. The old lady said worriedly, the Xian beasts have all come out of Tianfa. We can use tricks, but the Sword Peak has stood for millions of years, how can it collapse so easily? The latter is too difficult. Maybe it will collapse tomorrow. Don't worry, Grandma. The heavens will always protect the good. Jun Mo Xia vowed solemnly. Go away. What does a kid know? How can such a thing be done just by opening your mouth? Our Dongfang family has never been a kind family. If someone punches me, I'll return it with 10 swords. Kind person. Is that how Jun Zhantian, that old thing, taught you? The old lady reprimanded Jun Moxie in a bad mood. She also reprimanded the Dongfang family. Mo Xia, your grandmother and uncle are discussing things. You're just a kid, don't interrupt. Dongfang Wenxin warned gently. Then, he said unhappily, Mother. Mo Xia is still a kid. Aren't you afraid of scaring him by being so loud? When he grows up. Chapter 608. The old lady took a few deep breaths and said bitterly, when Xian, it's not that I want to lecture you, but even if you want to spoil your child, there should be a limit. Mo Xia is still a child. His cultivation is even higher than mine, no matter how high his cultivation is, he's still a child. If his cultivation is higher, he's not my son anymore. Dongfang Wen Xian was a little unreasonable and protective of her child. The old lady and Jun Moxie were both speechless. Grandma, let me take a look at these reports. Jun Moxie took the reports and looked through them one by one. Mei Shuyan, who was beside him, also looked over. Obviously, she had the same question. As they watched, both of them frowned. Strange. This was too strange. These reports only talked about how the Three Holy Lands surrounded Venerable Mei and how fierce the battle was. It was very detailed, but there was not a single mention of Jun Moxie. What was going on? These two people had obviously left together. They were ambushed together, and they were attacked together. In this place, there was actually nothing for Jun Mo Xia to do. What was going on? The two of them looked at each other and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. Mei Shuyan furrowed her brows and thought for a while. Then, she secretly transmitted her voice, the Three Holy Lands must be wary of your master and purposely erased your name from the intelligence report. This matter is highly possible. After all, if such an ambush angered him, the Three Holy Lands would not be able to bear it. As long as they don't mention you, when you go back after a period of time, the storm will naturally disappear. That makes sense. Jun Moxie understood. With the power of the Three Holy Lands, it was not difficult for them to purposely change the reports to this extent. Moreover, the ambush happened in the wilderness, and no one saw it. Naturally, they could say whatever they wanted. Now that Mo Xia's cultivation has reached a high level, Shui Yan is his strongest helper. With such strength, dealing with the Shao family or even the entire Silver Blizzard city would be a cinch. Li Ju Tian is dead, and Yunbi Chen hasn't appeared in the world for a long time. The Silver Blizzard City is no longer a threat. So, it's time for our Dongfang family to prepare for a comeback. Wen Qing, Wen Jian, Wen Dao, the three of you are responsible for training the 3 talents assassins of heaven, earth, and man. How are the results? How many people have reached the standard? Dongfang Wenqing stood up and said, 36 sky-ranked assassins have qualified. Currently, there are 71 qualified Earth-rank assassins. As for human-rank assassins, there are currently a total of 341. No. The power that he could use was still too little. It wasn't of much use at all. Hurry up and practice. Even if you die, you have to practice. Mo Xia will set off for the Silver Blizzard City at any time. Wang Zhan is confident that he has the absolute advantage in terms of strength. What if the strength of our soldiers can't keep up? At that time, at least 50 sky-ranked assassins and 100 earth-ranked assassins will follow Mo Xia to take revenge. You have to know that we, the Dongfang family, haven't rescinded our vows yet. The old lady ordered in a gloomy tone. Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 agreed, but their faces showed that they were in a dilemma. Jun Mo Xia felt a surge of warmth in his heart. Grandma is so anxious because of my revenge. So, he winked at Mei Xuan. Mei Xuan understood. She stood up and took out a few small jade bottles from her bosom. She smiled and said, Grandma, Shui Yan has some good things here. With these, the previous problem will no longer be a problem. What are these? The old lady asked in surprise. The Dongfang family was located in a remote area, so they still didn't know about the transcendent pills. Although Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 knew about the 10 years pill, they only mentioned it when they came back and didn't explain it in detail. So, the old lady didn't know about it. These are the miraculous pills refined by Mo Xia's Master. These are the 10 years pills. Each pill can increase a Xian practitioner's Xian Qi by 10 years. There are 2 bottles here, and each bottle contains 100 pills. These 2 bottles contain the bone-tempering pills, which can be used to change a person's physique. There are also 200 pills. These pills are used to train future talents for the Dongfang family. Mei Xuan smiled as she introduced the pills. When she said the words, Mo Xia's master, she couldn't help but pause. Then, she continued, as for the other 3 bottles, they are the real rare pills. This is the Vitality Linkage Pill, which can increase a Xian practitioner's speed by 3 times, regardless of the foundation. This is the Vitality Gathering Pill, which can increase a Xian practitioner's speed by 3 times. And finally, the Heavenly Vitality Pill, which can directly increase a person's pure strength by 50 years. These 3 pills are very rare, and there are only 10 pills in each bottle. But, they are specially prepared for grandma and uncles. But, if someone else were to take them, they must be at least at the peak of the Tian Xian realm in order to take them. Otherwise, their bodies will explode and they will die. Jun Moxie had refined many of these pills in this period of time, and they had come in handy now. Mei Xuan had only taken out a very small part of them. But, the Dongfang family's current strength wouldn't be able to use them even if they had more. In fact, these pills were already more than 3 times more than what they had. As Mei Xuan spoke, Dongfang, the old lady, and Dongfang Wenqing gasped in shock. Then, their mouths opened wider and wider, and they couldn't close them anymore. This was simply something that had never appeared in the legends, and now, it actually appeared in front of them. And Dongfang Wenxian's face was full of excitement. Between her brows, there was obviously a bit more expectation. Didn't all these miracles and legends prove that my son really had that kind of magical power? Could it be that what Mo Xia said was actually true? Although Dongfang Wenxian had said that she believed him, she was still doubtful in her heart. To a large extent, she had only agreed to it because she didn't want to disappoint her son. After all, bringing the dead back to life was such an unimaginable miracle. How could it be done lightly? But now, at this moment, in her heart, there was a bit more confidence. She had really ignited her hope. The old lady of Dongfang looked very excited. She took a deep breath and said, "Xia, these things are too precious. How can we afford it? Grandma, aren't you being a little too polite? I, Jun Moxie, am the grandson of the Dongfang family. We are a family, why can't we afford it? Besides, speaking of preciousness, in this world, what can be more precious than family?" Jun Moxie smiled and said, "So, if you want to say that we can't afford it, it's only me who can't afford it. I even think that these things are really too little." Good. Well said, this sentence is so well said. In this world, what can be more precious than family? The old lady praised, just because of this sentence, Xia, you have really grown up. When Xian, you really should be proud of your son. He is so young, but he knows so much more than you do. As his mother, you should learn to be like your good son. Dongfang Wen Xian's face turned red and she lowered her head, but she was very satisfied in her heart. Because, that was her own son, although her mother had scolded her, she had praised her son, which made her even happier than if she had praised herself. Xia, about Blizzard's Silver City, do you have any specific plans? Do you have any strategies? The old lady put away the jade bottle and asked cautiously. Blizzard Silver City? I don't have any specific plans. Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows and said, it's nothing more than to collapse the Sword Peak, flatten Blizzard's Silver City, drag out the Shao family members one by one, and put them to death. What kind of strategies do we even need? That's not a plan. If I had a plan, wouldn't I have flattened the entire snow mountain? The third uncle, Dongfang Wen Dao, was startled. He sucked in a breath of cold air and mumbled as if he had a toothache. Everything must be planned out before taking action. Caution is the parent of safety. You can't be impulsive right now. You must not be arrogant just because you are stronger than others. You must know that there is always someone better out there. The old lady warned. I understand. I am planning to leave the Dongfang family in the next 2 days and return to the Jun residence to prepare for the trip to Blizzard's Silver City. Jun Moxie replied respectfully. Oh. That's good too. Wen Xian, what about you? The old lady turned around and looked at her daughter. Dongfang Wen Xian replied calmly, of course I will go back with my son. I am the daughter-in-law of the Jun family after all. I have not served my in-laws well these past few years. I have been very unfilial. Now that I have woken up, I will naturally make up for the past 10 years. If I don't do this, how can I face Wu Hui? How can I face my 2 pitiful children? The old lady let out a long sigh. She raised her head and looked into the distance. After a long time, she closed her eyes and said sadly, all right. She lowered her head and looked at her daughter. Her eyes were full of pity and reluctance. However, she said sternly, Dongfang Wen Xian, since you have made such a decision, I will not stop you. But you must always remember. You are a mother. You must not let down your mother, your husband's family, and the world. You must not let down your son, daughter-in-law, and future grandchildren. I don't want you to fall asleep and be carried back. Do you understand? Dongfang Wen Xian smiled sadly and said, Mother, don't worry. I have thought it through. I will never bring shame to the Dongfang family again. That's good. The old lady closed her eyes and did not speak anymore. That afternoon, Jun Moxie and Mei Xuan visited the training base of the Dongfang family with the company of his 3 uncles. They also made many suggestions for improvement. With his experience as the king of assassins and his wholehearted guidance, almost every word he said was treated as a golden rule by Dongfang Wenqing and the other 2 uncles. They were so inspired that they almost took pen and paper and followed behind him to take notes. After that, Jun Moxie sorted out a training plan. It was also the training content of his previous life. He just deleted some parts and gave it to Dongfang Wenqing. Jun Moxie was very confident that with the foundation of the Dongfang family, if he used this plan as the foundation, the rise of the martial world would be just around the corner. Chapter 609. The old lady readily agreed and said disdainfully, "That thing, I don't know what it is. Anyway, I got it by accident, and it's good for the body. Other than that, it has no other use. It's not good for cultivation, and it can't improve one's skills. It's just used to prolong your mother's life. If it wasn't useful for your mother, maybe she wouldn't know where to throw it away. Take it, see what's good here, take a few more." Jun Moxie touched his nose and was somewhat speechless. This was obviously a treasure of heaven and earth, and the old lady actually said that it was almost thrown away. Although he knew that the old lady said this to let him not take it to heart, but Jun Moxie still felt wronged for this treasure of heaven and earth. Because, the old lady's lack of attention to this small tree was obvious at a glance, and it wasn't fake. In fact, not to mention the old lady, even Jun Moxie himself didn't know what this small tree was at the moment. But although Jun Moxie didn't know what it was, he firmly believed that as long as it was recognized by the Hongjun Pagoda, then it was a rare treasure in the world. This matter couldn't be wrong. Dongfang Third Master and his wife, along with their children, sat at a table, feeling proud of themselves. Dongfang Wenqing and Dongfang Wenjian both had a face full of envy. The wives and concubines beside them were even more resentful. Once a woman was a few years older, once she saw others teasing children, how could she restrain her maternal instincts? Jun Moxie's heart was filled with joy after solving several major problems in a row. So, he noticed that Dongfang Wenqing was frowning. So, he couldn't help but sneakily ask, "Uncle, what's the matter? You have so many aunts, why didn't you get me a cousin or something? Isn't it a bit of a waste? You think I don't want to? Your grandmother complained a lot about me." Dongfang Wenqing glared at him angrily. "But these women are so disappointing. What can I do?" Jun Moxie rolls his eyes. It might be possible for 1 or 2 wives to be infertile. But if all 59 wives are infertile, then Dongfang Wenqing's luck is too horrible. With such a probability, you can buy a lottery, and win every single one of them. Why didn't he just say that it was because of him? Jun Moxie was a little disdainful. He squinted his eyes and said sneakily, "I'm quite knowledgeable in this area. I was the one who fixed my third uncle's leg. If first uncle trusts me, I can guarantee that you'll be hugging babies this time next year, and there will be several of them." "Really?" Dongfang Wenqing sat up straight and looked at Jun Moxie with her lantern-like eyes. She breathed heavily and grabbed her nephew's hand. "You're not lying to me, are you?" The people around him were shocked. "Damn! What does this first master want to do? Why would I lie to you? It's true." Jun Moxie squinted his eyes and smiled mysteriously. He said, "Actually, I can see it at first glance. Not only you, but second uncle also has this problem, right?" Dongfang Wenqing blushed. She said shyly, "Don't mention it. It's really a misfortune for our family, you can't control yourself when you're young." Jun Moxie sighed pretentiously. He said earnestly, "The absurdity of youth often brings a bitter consequence for life." This sentence is the same for both men and women. Although it's said that it's a waste to be romantic when you're young, there's a limit to everything. These words were what Dongfang Wenqing said to Jun Moxie when they were in Tiannan. Now, both of them had, "Believe it or not, I'll beat you up." Dongfang Wenqing was a little impatient. She roared at Jun Moxie. Then, she looked at the people around her, who were about to prick up their ears to listen. She immediately scared them away. Let me help you take a closer look." Jun Moxie grabbed Dongfang Wenqing's hand and injected a stream of natural energy into his body. Then, he used the pure life force of the power of wood to go through his body. Then, he took out a small jade bottle and said, "Take 1 pill every day for half a month. Within half a month, you must not have sex. After half a month, Jun Mo Xia revealed a manly smile. However, Dongfang Wenqing snatched the jade bottle from his hands, and casually slapped his head. Then, he put on the airs of an uncle, and glared at Jun Mo Xia as he reprimanded, "What are you thinking about at such a young age? How could you speak of such an unrefined matter with such relish? It seems that you're the #1 foppish young man in the capital city. I'll have to tell your mother and let her teach you a lesson." His other hand was like a weasel that had stolen a chicken, and he put the jade bottle into his bosom at the speed of lightning. The moment he said that, his voice was very loud. More than 200 pairs of eyes turned to look at Jun Mo Xia like searchlights. Their eyes were full of curiosity, obviously wanting to know what this little fellow had said to actually be reprimanded by the Grand Elder. It must have been something very unbearable. Otherwise, why would the Grand Elder reprimand him in front of everyone? Jun Mo Xia was infuriated. He had never seen such a shameless person who didn't know what was good for him. "I helped you solve your lifetime's difficulties out of goodwill. It's fine if you didn't say anything after getting the benefits. But to cover up your embarrassment, you pushed me to the front of the awkward stage? This can't be tolerated. I can tolerate it, but I can't tolerate it either. Since I can't tolerate it anymore, there's no need to tolerate it anymore." Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and moved closer to him mysteriously. He said, "Grand Uncle, as long as you take the medicine and follow the other movements and incantations, it'll be foolproof. Maybe when I come back, you'll have a group of children. There are specific movements and incantations." Dongfang Wenqing was stunned. Just a moment ago, he was still secretly delighted that he had finally made a fool out of this brat. Moreover, he had successfully protected his face. Most importantly, he had even obtained an enormous benefit. Who would have thought that before he could even blink, a pail of cold water would be poured down on him? He had just made a fool out of him. With this brat's vengeful character, how could he possibly let him off? She could not help but be vigilant. "What conditions do you have? Tell me." "Conditions?" Jun Moxie cried out, feeling wronged. "Do I need to talk about conditions with you, Grand Elder? Since you see me as such a despicable person, I won't say it. You've made me sad and wronged. I was filled with enthusiasm and gratitude, that's why I wanted to help you solve this problem. It's my fault. It's my fault. Uncle is wrong. Uncle is wrong." Dongfang Wenqing quickly covered his mouth and apologized profusely. Then, he shamelessly asked, "Good nephew, what kind of movement and incantation are these? Hurry up and tell Uncle." "Well, who asked you to be my uncle? We're all on the same side, so I'll tell you." Jun Mo Xia sighed helplessly. It seemed as if he had suffered a huge grievance. "What a good boy. Uncle, thank you so much." Dongfang Wenqing was overjoyed. Moving closer to Uncle Dongfang's ear, Jun Moxie tried to make his voice inaudible. "This movement needs to be in the air. It may be a little tiring. You have to hold on." "Yes, hanging upside down." Yes, Dongfang Wenqing nodded repeatedly, frowning seriously. She tried to memorize it wholeheartedly, for fear that she would miss a word and ruin the whole thing. "And the incantations are..." "Listen, remember carefully. You have to match the movements." "Yes, the incantations are like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Yin and yang are in harmony, heaven and earth are in peace. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Change your posture and do it again." Jun Moxie taught seriously. Dongfang Wenqing memorized it wholeheartedly. She was so anxious that her forehead was almost sweating. "I'm old, so my memory is not good. Fortunately, it's not very long, so it's easy to remember." As soon as Jun Moxie finished reciting, Dongfang Wenqing was still frowning and muttering. Jun Moxie asked kindly, "Have you memorized it?" Dongfang Wenqing furrowed his brows and stood up. He didn't say anything, and walked out with a calm and dignified face. He strode straight to the study room. It seems like a good memory is inferior to a lousy pen. I've memorized it, but what if I forget it? It's better to write it down, Moxia, where did your first uncle go? Dongfang Wenjian sat down and asked suspiciously. Well, he probably drank a little too much and went to the toilet. Jun Moxie chuckled. The next step was to solve the problem of Dongfang Wenjian. However, Dongfang Wenjian was much more honest. He took the elixir and began to thank Jun Moxie profusely, beaming with joy. Naturally, Jun Moxie did not teach him any nonsense, movements and incantations. From this, it could be seen that it was better to be honest. I'll let you embarrass me again. Although you're my uncle, I won't spare you when it's time to punish you. Jun Moxie was proud of himself. He shrugged his shoulders and laughed silently. Later, he held his stomach and slapped his thighs, laughing wildly. Bang! A chicken bone flew over and hit his head. Jun Moxie looked up in shock and saw Dongfang. The old lady's face was red. She looked at him fiercely and scolded, "Little bastard. What are you laughing at?" Well, nothing. Jun Moxie touched his head and sat down with a grin. Madame Dowager looked at him gloomily. Suddenly, she spat out the mouthful of wine in her mouth and coughed. Her face was flushed, and she scolded angrily and helplessly, "You're too mischievous." It turned out that the old lady heard it. Actually, there were only two people who heard it, Mei Shuiyan and the old lady. These two people were the most powerful. However, Mei Shuiyan was a virgin after all, so she didn't know what it meant. On the other hand, the old lady was an experienced person. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. Jun Moxie touched his head and giggled. He quickly lowered his head to eat and drink. He looked very well behaved. "Mother, what's wrong?" Dongfang Wenxin looked at her mother blankly. She was sitting next to him just now and almost got spat out. "You're such a naughty son. But you have to teach him a lesson. When you go back, watch him closely. This kid is too naughty. When it's time to beat him up, don't be soft-hearted. Just hit him hard. This kid can take it." The old lady calmed down, but she was still angry. She heard it. But that thing. She couldn't remind him. How could she, as his mother, remind him about this kind of thing? This grandson of hers was really too mischievous. Moxia is so well behaved. How could he not listen to me? Dongfang Wenxian furrowed her brows and said with heartache, "I don't want to hit a child. I remember when he was a naughty child, I gave him a tight slap on his butt, and I even cried for a few days." The old lady rolled her eyes. She couldn't do anything about it. This matter lasted until a long time later. One day, Dongfang Wenjian saw his elder brother twisting his waist in the garden. He didn't know what he was doing, so he walked up and asked, "Elder brother, what are you doing?" Chapter 610. Ahem, there are already 5 pregnant. Big brother, I heard that you have quite a lot. Mother has been very happy recently. Moxia's medicine is really effective. Dongfang Wenjian touched his nose. He was a little embarrassed, but his tone was full of excitement. "That's right, I already have 7 little fellows on my side that are about to be born." Ha! Dongfang Wenqing laughed proudly inside. That brat Moxia, his method is really good, but it's a little too tiring. Although the women aren't heavy, there's still over 100 jin ah. Half an hour ah, and I still have to keep chanting the incantations. It's really tiring ah. It's not like I'm the only one. Ai, so many women. But it's still worth it. Dongfang Wenqing twisted his waist and spun his buttocks in circles. His eyes were filled with envy as he looked at Dongfang Wenjian. "Second bro, you're a few years younger than me. You're so useful, your waist doesn't even ache, right? Tiring? Heavy? Incantation?" Dongfang Wenjian asked curiously, "Big brother, what are you talking about?" Dongfang Wenqing looked at him and said casually, it's the secret method of making babies that Mo Xie mentioned, #%%%, yen 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 #yen%. Dongfang Wenjian was speechless. What else can I do? Won't I be fine after taking the medicine? What? Dongfang Wenqing immediately stopped moving, and froze on the spot like a mummy. He slowly turned his head, and suddenly grabbed Dongfang Wenjian's collar. He gnashed his teeth, glared at him, and roared, "Second brother, what did you say? What did you say just now?" Dongfang Wenjian was startled, and his whole body was lifted off the ground. He rolled his eyes in fear and said, I didn't say anything, you said it. Dongfang Wenqing was about to explode, and she roared loudly, say it again. Say what? You're still pretending to be confused. You damned bastard. You better tell me now. What did Mo Xie tell you back then? Dongfang Wenqing lowered his voice and spat out word by word through gritted teeth, no. There's no other way. He just gave me a few pills. I'll take one a day and forbid sexual intercourse for half a month. After half a month, I'll be completely fine. Dongfang Wenjian cried out as if he had been wronged. His two legs kicked wildly in the air. Big brother, quickly put me down, cough cough cough. I'm about to suffocate to death, puff. Dongfang Wenjian fell heavily on the ground. He rolled and crawled a few feet away. When he turned around, he saw that his eldest brother was still in the same position as before. He was standing there motionlessly, like a bronze statue. Big brother, are you all right? Dongfang Wenjian asked cautiously. Scram! Dongfang Wenqing let out a long and drawn-out roar, causing the mountains and valleys to reverberate. Dongfang Wenjian fled. After a long time, following this hysterical roar, a series of banging sounds could be heard, as if someone was madly smashing and smashing. It was only until the next day that everyone realized that the entire garden had been completely destroyed. Not to mention the flowers, trees, and rockery, there wasn't even a single piece of grass left. At this time, old madam was counting on her fingers in her room. In a few more months, she would be able to add more than 10 children. The Dongfang family would finally not have to worry about a lack of successors, boundless gratification. Hearing her eldest son's roar coming from the direction of the garden, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. How did I give birth to such a foolish son? It took me so long to realize. My son is really slow. Sigh, those maids are really slow. Is it so tiring to make a few sets of baby clothes? The more he thought about it, the more he smiled. He muttered to himself, this is great. The population has flourished all of a sudden. It's all thanks to Mo Xie, and, on the second morning, Jun Moxie left the Dongfang family with Mei Xuan and his mother, Dongfang Wenxin, on their way back. Next, Jun Moxie needed to consider how to deal with the Silver Blizzard City. Only now did he realize that the pugilistic world was in an uproar. No matter where he went, it was like a pot of boiling water. On the way back, Jun Moxie and Mei Xuan unexpectedly discovered that there were too many people from the 3 Holy Lands. The number seemed to be much more than the 90 people from the previous time. It seemed like the revenge of the 3 Holy Lands had already begun. Not only did they want to deal with Mei Xuan, but they also wanted to deal with Chu Chihuan. On the way back, Chu Chihuan's glorious achievements were being discussed everywhere. Praises of the supreme assassin were being sung everywhere. The pugilistic world was bustling with activity. The heroic deeds and glorious image of the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan, had already become a household name. Every day that passed, as long as there was no news that the 3 Holy Lands had successfully killed Chu Chihuan, the whole pugilistic world would continue to be in awe of him. Today, Chu Chihuan could be said to be the first idol of the Xian continent in many years. The prestige of his name was simply earth-shattering. Like the first clap of thunder in spring, it rolled over endlessly, shaking the heavens, shaking the earth, and the vast sky. especially when it was made into a folk song that was sung everywhere, lasting for a long time. Bichu Chihuan, your name shakes the world, incomparably peerless, look down on who can stand shoulder to shoulder with him, the supreme assassin. These were the first 4 lines that were sung. But later on, some busybodies added another 4 lines, kill the mortal world, kill the holy lands, kill the thieves, kill the supreme assassin, escape the world, kill the supreme assassin, kill them all under the sword. Jun Mo Sia was in the middle of eating when he heard this limerick. Suddenly, he spat out a small piece of deep-fried biscuit that he had just chewed. Then, he rubbed his stomach and laughed like he was about to die. Dongfang Wen Xin raised her eyebrows. This young man from an aristocratic family was so lacking in etiquette. She was about to reprimand him, but when she turned to look, she saw that her usually steady and dignified daughter-in-law, Mei Shuiyan, was also laughing so hard that she was shaking like a flower. Looking at her, if it wasn't for the fact that she had to maintain a reserved image, she was probably even more exaggerated than Jun Moxie. What's going on? Why are you both laughing so foolishly? Dongfang Wen Xin frowned and looked at the two of them. No. Nothing. Ha ha ha. No ha. What? Jun Moxie tried to hold it in. Finally, he couldn't hold it in any longer. His whole body twitched, and he leaned on the table and trembled. The teacups, plates, and teapots on the table also started to tremble, clanking loudly. He was the one directly involved, so how could he not know how Chu Chihuan's illustrious reputation came about? Carrying one black pot after another, and it was the extra-large kind. Carrying the supreme assassin and the holy lands, and it was only one at the beginning. Now, all 3 of them were on his shoulders, and he couldn't even unload them. Carrying such a tragic black pot, it would be strange if he didn't become famous. In order to reduce the chances of attracting attention, the 3 of them disguised themselves a little. After all, Dongfang Wen Xin was with them. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. It was different from when the 2 of them came. No matter how big the danger was, they could escape at any time. Now that the 3 holy lands were so powerful, they had no choice but to hide. Although Dongfang Wen Xin was already a mother of 3 children, she was already in her 40s. After so many changes, she should have looked haggard. However, she had been in a deep sleep for 10 years. Because of the miraculous little tree, her face was still the same as it was 10 years ago. Her face didn't change much, and she had the elegance of a beautiful middle-aged woman. Only her eyebrows and eyes still had the willfulness of a young girl. Although she couldn't be said to be a peerless beauty, she could be said to be a pretty woman. Especially during this period of time, with her son and daughter-in-law serving her, she was in a good mood. Because of the great hope in her heart, she had become more energetic. If she didn't disguise herself, she would be radiant the moment she came out. How could she still keep a low profile? As for Mei Shuiyan, she was an outstanding beauty that was rarely seen in the world. If she were to travel with her original appearance, she would probably be chased by a lot of lascivious men. Although she was not afraid of them, it was still very annoying. Besides, even if he didn't have to guard against anything else, he still had to guard against the people of the 3 holy lands who could appear and kill him at any time. Naturally, he had to be careful. They arrived at a small town that day. Jun Mo Xia and Little White Tiger had also walked this road a few days ago. It could be said that this road was deserted on that day. There weren't any pedestrians. But today, they saw people coming and going. It was very lively, and they almost thought that they had arrived at a different town. It turned out that during this period of time, because of Chu Chi-hun's high-profile rise, it caused a lot of changes, causing the people of Jianghu to frequently come and go. Even this small town was no exception. People came and went, it was bustling with activity. They walked out of the town and hurried for a while. The snow was getting heavier. Jun Moxie felt sorry for his mother. He saw a small pub by the road and went in to temporarily avoid the wind and snow. The small pub was located in a remote area. Usually, business was not good. In this cold and snowy weather, business was even worse. But now, in this off-season, when the pub was almost closed, business was booming, and money was coming from all over the world. It could be seen that the appearance of the idol, Chu Chihuan, had directly led to the development of the economy and stimulated consumption. Yes, something like this had not happened in the world of martial arts for thousands of years. When this rumor about Chu Chihuan came out, how could the bored martial artists not pay attention to it? It could be said that the people in the world of martial arts were even more professional than the most professional paparazzi. In such a big snowstorm, the weather was freezing, and the paparazzi did not come out. They asked around and spread the news. There was an endless stream of rumors. All kinds of anecdotes came out. There were different versions of the legend, but the only thing that was similar was the main character, Chu Chihuan. For example, the story of the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan, and the three holy lands, the inside story of the three holy lands chasing after Chu Chihuan. It was all because of a chicken's butt hair. The three holy lands were furious. The supreme assassin roamed the world. Who was the beautiful old lady crying behind him? Chapter 611. The great idol Chu Chihuan, with his unparalleled influence, had directly or indirectly driven the consumption of all kinds of restaurants, teahouses, hotels, and so on and so forth. From this, it could be seen that the power of an idol was indeed limitless. Since ancient times, no matter if it was on Earth or in another world, it was the same. Jun Moxie had only just sat down, and had not even finished his meal, but he had already heard 3 different versions of the story. Any one of them made him want to burst out laughing. It was almost the end of the year, and the heavy snow had connected the sky and the earth. This small and secluded hotel was now overcrowded. The snow had sealed the mountain, and the people who had come in couldn't get out. They were all sitting around the fire, and new people were coming in one after another. And the most ridiculous thing was that, in the face of such a hot scene, the 2 owners of the hotel, who had been collecting money until their hands were cramping, and they kept the money in their pockets, seemed to be very dissatisfied, and even a little annoyed. They even ignored the money that they were collecting. This abnormal thing made Jun Moxie pay attention to it quickly. Mei Shuiyan's martial arts were extremely high, but her experience in the martial world was shallow. She would not pay much attention to such low-level human relationships. Dongfang Wen Xian was born in a big family, so he did not care much about these things. But Jun Moxie was the king of assassins for 2 generations, and he had a lot of experience in the martial world, so he paid attention to even the smallest things. He felt that this small hotel was really strange. However, in such a snowy weather, this place was an excellent place to stay. Moreover, there was a lot of specious information that was free of charge. Therefore, Jun Moxie decided to stay here for the night. It wouldn't be too late to make a decision tomorrow based on the weather. After all, Dongfang Wen Xian's cultivation was still shallow. Even with the help of Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan, it was still very difficult for them to travel in such bad weather. Staying here for one more day, other than resting and waiting for the right time, he might be able to hear some explosive news. Even if there was nothing, it would be good to hear some interesting legends. The owners of this tavern are 2 first-class experts. Jun Moxie was in deep thought, and Mei Shuiyan's voice drilled into his ears. Yes, it is indeed quite brilliant. Besides, there's something strange about this pub. Jun Moxie's eyelids didn't move as he gently held the teacup. Strange? What's weird about it? Mei Shuiyan was a little surprised. She looked left and right, and realized that this was only a small pub. There was nothing strange about it. Only the 2 bosses were extremely brilliant, and even the waiters were ordinary people. After all, there were many hidden masters who had seen through the world and lived in seclusion, never getting involved in the affairs of the world. So, it wasn't necessarily strange. How could it be strange? First of all, the location of this pub is very strange. We just left that small town, and rushed here. Even though it's less than 100 miles, don't underestimate this distance. 100 miles is only a short while for us, but for an ordinary person, it would take at least a day. Moreover, the small town in front of us has quite a lot of residents. If the pub was opened there, from a business point of view, it would definitely make more money. June Moxie analyzed in a low voice, so, this is the first strange point. That's right. This place is indeed a little remote. Mei Shuyan nodded. If we walk further ahead, we will reach a stretch of mountains that stretches for hundreds of miles. There are no signs of human habitation. However, it could also be that the two bosses have seen through the ways of the world, and don't want to come into the world anymore. So, it's possible that they opened a pub in a remote place. I've thought about this before, but I still can't figure it out. Because the second strange thing is that in such a small tavern, in the middle of nowhere, there are two powerful masters as the owners. What's their intention? What's their purpose? Or should I say, what's the benefit? If they really have seen through the ways of the world and want to live in seclusion, why don't they just go deep into the mountains? Why do they have to choose this place? June Moxie asked a series of questions. Another strange point is, why are there so many Jianghu people here? The last time we came here, there weren't any customers. We can also see from the expressions of the two old men that this phenomenon has only appeared in the last 2 days. So, they are very impatient. But, they can't do anything about it. If it had been like this for a long time, I'm afraid that these two people would have moved away a long time ago. They didn't do anything about it. I'm afraid that they are afraid of revealing their whereabouts. These two top-notch masters are even recognized by us. So, what are they afraid of? June Moxie raised a third question. In summary, these Jianghu people have gathered here, and the people from the three holy lands have also appeared here. I can boldly judge that Chu Chihuan should be hiding in this area. Otherwise, why would these people come here in such terrible weather? As for this news, it should be released by the three holy lands. June Moxie frowned. The more he spoke, the clearer his thoughts became. Establishing prestige. In the past 10,000 years, no one had ever dared to go against the three holy lands like this. But Chu Chi-hun did it. Not only did he do it, he even caused a great loss to the three holy lands' battle strength. The three holy lands had to find a way to eliminate this negative influence, and the best way to deal with it was to eliminate Chu Chi-hun in one fell swoop, and it had to be done in front of everyone. So the three holy lands had to first let Chu Chi-hun's reputation rise, and then kill him in front of everyone. This way, they can be wary of Xian, intimidate the world, and re-establish the supreme authority of the three holy lands. This is the main purpose of the three holy lands. June Moxie laughed. But, isn't it unnecessary for the three holy lands to do this? Isn't it better for them to kill Chu Chihuan quietly than to mobilize a large number of people? After all, only they know about this matter. Are they afraid that others will spread the news? Mei Shuyan asked, puzzled. You've overlooked the most important problem. At the very least, there are two people who know about this. If the three holy lands keep concealing it, the moment we expose it, the three holy lands will be in an even more passive position. As the saying goes, it's better to let them announce it to the world. It's more proactive. As long as they can eliminate Chu Chihuan in front of everyone, all the negative influence will vanish like smoke. June Moxie raised his eyebrows and said somewhat mockingly, the three holy lands are gauging the heart of a gentleman with their own mean measure this time. Are you a gentleman? Mei Shuyan rolled her eyes at him and snorted. If the three holy lands don't do this, then you'll be the one doing this, right? June Moxie rubbed his nose and laughed. It must be said that ever since Mei Shuyan got together with June Moxie, she could be said to have a deep understanding of this fellow's bad taste. Just like what she said, if the three holy lands really made a stupid move and tried their best to cover it up, then June Dashao would definitely make a move and use Chu Chihuan to stir up a storm. But at that time, the right to speak would all be in Jun Dashao's hands, so, Jun Moxie obviously expressed his anger and strong dissatisfaction with this beautiful response from the three Holy Lands. They actually dared to mess up this young master's follow-up plan. This pub was really not big. There were a total of 6 or 7 tables, and at this time, they were already full. Jun Moxie, Mei Shuoyan, and Dongfang Wen-Xian were sitting at the innermost table. From here, they could see everything at a glance. However, this good seat was actually bought by Jun Moxie with money. This seat was originally occupied by 5 people. Jun Moxie did not say much. He just walked over and took out 5 silver notes and placed them on the table. Then, he grabbed the machete of one of the men and poked a hole in the thickest part of the blade with his finger. Then, Jun Dashao pointed his finger at the silver notes and pointed it outwards. Then, he pointed at the hole on the machete and pointed it downwards. From the beginning to the end, there was not a single word of conversation. The 5 fierce-looking men obediently kept the silver notes and left. Moreover, they were extremely attentive and even cleaned up the table quietly. They did not even call the waiter to clean up the table. This behavior made Dongfang Wen-Xian wring her neck and scolding the nouveau riche. However, after doing this, the effect could be said to be extraordinarily good. After witnessing this strange scene, the other guests at the other tables acted as if they did not see it. They continued to talk loudly, but their expressions were obviously much more restrained. Moreover, they would rather squeeze 10 people at a small table than sit together with this nouveau riche young man. Everyone understood that their necks were definitely not as hard as that machete. In this cold weather, if there was really a hole in their necks, it would be really terrible. After that, the complacent Jun Dashao said proudly, "This is the reality of this world. Having money and power is great. Although I don't have power now, I have money and fists. In this place, having fists is equivalent to having power. Moreover, it is the power of life and death. Girl, learn a little. This is a big knowledge." Such complacent words made Dongfang Wen-Xian very dissatisfied. It also made Mei Shuoyan roll her eyes. However, the two of them could not refute it. On the other side, at a table a little further away, someone was talking loudly. It is said that Chu Chihuan suddenly let out a long roar. He jumped up and appeared in Hermitage in a heroic manner. He brazenly rushed in and started to fight fiercely. As he attacked fiercely, he continuously roared, "Give me back my wife." Jun Moxie held his teacup and listened with great interest. He commented seriously, "This Chu Chihuan is really brave. He actually directly attacked Hermitage. He is so domineering, so courageous." Mei Shuoyan giggled and shook her body. The 2 bosses who were lying on the counter and taking a nap also raised their heads sleepily. One of them moved his lips as if he said something. The other nodded in agreement, then lowered his head and continued to take a nap. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuoyan heard clearly that the old man said the word idiot. They did not know whether he was scolding Jun Moxie or the big men at the table. Chapter 612. Dongfang Wen-Xian had heard a lot about Chu Chihuan along the way. This Chu Chihuan had been famous for more than 60 years, and he was the only top-notch assassin who could compete with the Dongfang family alone. He was already famous, and now he had become even more famous. However, when Xian didn't find anything funny about what these people said. How could such a hot-blooded story become a joke? Yet, his son and daughter-in-law were overjoyed when they heard it. This was too strange. Ever since they entered a place with people, Dongfang Wen-Xian didn't call Jun Moxie by his name anymore. Instead, she called him by his nickname, San Air. Firstly, it wouldn't expose his identity, and secondly, it was more intimate. "Mother, there are too many people here, so it's not convenient for me to explain it to you. I'll tell you in detail when we're on the road. When you understand the cause and effect, you'll be happy too." Jun Moxie laughed. Right at this moment, something strange happened. The cotton curtain that was blocking the entrance of the tavern suddenly flew up, and countless snowflakes flew into the tavern along with the strong wind. Some of the hot-tempered customers wanted to curse, but they sat down with a face full of fear. In the white snow, a purple light flashed, and 3 people in purple robes entered the tavern like ghosts. It was snowing heavily outside, but when these 3 people walked in, they were clean. Even their shoes didn't have a single snowflake or mud. They were so clean that it was as if they had just come out from a bath. They looked refreshed. They were wearing the iconic purple robes. They were from the illusory Blood Sea. After the 3 of them came in, they looked around, sizing up everyone's face and body. Wherever their eyes landed, the people in that direction would feel as if they had been stripped naked in a world of ice and snow. It was a bone-chilling cold. After looking around, they walked a few steps in and stood beside the big fire basin. Only then did they notice that there were no empty tables. One of them frowned and slapped the table closest to him. Then, he stretched out a finger and pointed outside the door. The meaning was clear: get out. There were a total of 5 people at this table. They were the 5 burly men that June Moxie had sent away. Who would have thought that they would be chased away again after moving here? It could be said that this was an unlucky year. However, the 5 of them were very straightforward and efficient. They cleaned up the table like a whirlwind, bowed, and left dejectedly, disappearing into the wind and snow that filled the sky. The 3 human kings of the illusory Blood Sea had ugly expressions on their faces. Who would dare to provoke them at this time? Wasn't that courting death? Looking around the world, how many Chu Chihuans are there? No matter how many there are, we are definitely not him. Losing face was a given, but it was definitely better than losing his life. The tavern instantly quietened down. The people who had been talking about the 3 holy lands and Chu Chihuan had now lowered their heads and started to eat and drink. However, they did not even dare to make a sound as they chewed. They were as obedient as a 3rd grader who had seen their class teacher. Wine. Vegetables. Pick a good one and serve it quickly. A purple-robed man sat down with a gloomy face. The 2 old men at the counter raised their heads and looked at each other. Then, they bent down at the same time and sighed. The waiter quickly served the dishes and wine. The 3 purple-robed men started to eat and drink quietly. His demeanor was not very arrogant, but there was a kind of indifference in his bones. The hotel, which had been bustling with activity just a moment ago, became dead silent in an instant. Everyone was as quiet as cicadas in winter. Chu Chihuan had slapped the faces of the 3 holy lands. These people were obviously very angry. Whoever met them would be unlucky. No one wanted to be the unlucky one. We don't have Chu Chihuan's strength, and we don't have Chu Chihuan's guts. The illusory ocean of blood is truly awe-inspiring. Jun Moxia laughed mischievously. Mei Shuiyan gave him a warning look, indicating that he should not cause trouble. Now was not a good time to cause trouble. It seems that Chu Chihuan is nearby. Jun Moxie said quietly. Mei Shuiyan did not say anything. She said, if we meet him, should we help him? In the end, it is us. Jun Moxie smiled noncommittally and did not say anything. It was very quiet. It was so quiet that one could hear the sound of snow falling from the vast land outside the door. The northern wind whistled as it drew nearer and nearer. Then, it disappeared in an instant. This small tavern that was filled with people was as quiet as a ghost town. Pa, pa, pa. Outside, a few loud and clear sounds could be heard, as if thin bamboo poles were knocking on the hard ice. As they got closer, the exceptionally heavy footsteps, as well as the rather hurried breathing, could be heard clearly. The sound was getting closer and closer. Finally, it came to the door. The door curtain was lifted, and a walking stick was the first to come in. It hit the ground hard and coughed. A person covered in snow moved in with difficulty. It was only when he came in that everyone realized that this person had a wooden stick in his armpit. one of his legs was limp. The person who came was a cripple. His face was full of wrinkles, and his head was wrapped with a thick white cloth. There seemed to be some blood stains faintly visible. The thick white cloth even covered one of his eyes. It seemed that he was blind in one eye. The one eye that was exposed was full of pain. He was carrying a long and narrow bag on his back. This person looked so miserable. Could it be that he was a Xian cultivator? Otherwise, how could he travel in such terrible weather? With great difficulty, the man dragged himself in. Everybody stared at him. He coughed violently, shook himself, and snowflakes fell on the soles of his feet. Bits of ice stuck to his body. Even the few strands of hair that peeped out from the cleft of his hat were frozen into strips of ice. Give me a pot of wine, 10 steamed buns, and a plate of beef. This person was so cold that he was shivering. Even his teeth were chattering. He tremblingly took out a few pieces of silver from his bosom. As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone frowned. His voice was as unpleasant as a duck that had not drunk water for 7 or 8 days and had its neck choked by someone. Then, he looked left and right. He couldn't find an empty seat. He didn't seem to have the means of Jun Dashao or the illusionary blood sea. They couldn't make the other guests give up their seats for him. However, he had other plans. He sat in front of the brazier and gasped for air. He rubbed his hands and greeted everyone in embarrassment. Hey, the weather is really cold. The 3 people from the illusory blood sea had been watching him since he came in. They sized him up for a long time. Then, one of them with a square face and big ears suddenly smiled. He arrogantly and gently said, "Friend, where did you come from? How did you end up in such a sorry state?" "Ah, sir, thank you for asking. Alas, I think it's an unlucky year. I didn't expect to meet a robber in such a snowy weather." The lame man wanted to cry but had no tears. The cripple wanted to cry but had no tears as he said, "This lowly one has been working hard for a whole year and finally earned a few hundred taels of silver. I wanted to go home to celebrate the new year. Who would have thought that I would be robbed when I reached Rooster Mountain? Everything I had on me was robbed, even the fur coats I bought for my wife and children were also robbed. Of the few hundred taels of silver, I was only left with less than 3 taels of silver in my coat pocket. What's worse is that this lowly one only said a few words to beg for mercy, but that thief actually broke one of my legs and crippled one of my legs. I know that it's hard to walk in this world, and I don't know if I can go home with this crippled life. That's too much." The purple-robed man sighed and said sympathetically, "It's almost the end of the new year. The outlaws are getting more and more arrogant. They all want to have a good new year. However, those who were robbed by him also want to have a good new year. Who doesn't want to have a happy reunion with his wife and son?" "That's right." The lame man patted his thigh. He was in so much pain that he gasped for air. He squinted his eyes and said, "Those people are really heartless." What did the person who robbed you look like?" The purple-robed man asked with concern. "Tell us so that we can be prepared." "I didn't see what that person looked like. He was all white. He looked like a snowman who suddenly came to life. I became like this after a few bangs. I just begged for mercy, but that person broke my leg. I didn't see what the thief looked like until I woke up. Even if I wanted to report it to the authorities, I couldn't tell them clearly." While saying that, the lame man started to cry. The purple-robed man said kindly, "However, it's always good to keep your life. It's better than being robbed and killed. It's a great fortune in misfortune. Don't you think so, my friend?" The lame man looked stunned. After a long time, he sighed deeply. At this time, the liquor and steamed beef he ordered were served. He took a sip of the warm liquor and suddenly lowered his head sadly. His shoulders were shaking, and the robe on his back was twitching. He seemed to be crying, Dongfang Wen Xin sighed and said in a low voice, crippled in one leg, knowing that it's hard to walk in the world, how pitiful. San Er, such a pitiful person, if you can help him, just do it. You are quite rich, you have the money to buy a table, how can you lack the capital to help others? Jun Mo Xia had been quietly sizing up the lame man the whole time. Hearing this, he chuckled and lowered his voice, Mother, you're wrong. Don't worry, this lame man isn't pitiful at all. In this world, there are many people more pitiful than him. Then, he smiled meaningfully and said, Mother, you should continue to watch. There may be a lot of people here who deserve to be pitied, but they are definitely not some cripple who knows that it is hard to walk in the world with a crippled leg. I wonder who will not be able to walk in the world tomorrow morning. Mei Shuyan smiled and said, Mother, Mo Xia is right this time. Didn't you see that the three superior supremes from the illusory blood sea only glanced at them when they entered the restaurant? But why would he interrogate this cripple in such a pleasant manner? They are masters who have transcended the mortal world. Why do they care about a lame man? Dongfang Wenxin was stunned. She said doubtfully, Is there something wrong with that lame man? Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan laughed at the same time. There is something wrong with him. Mei Shuyan and Jun Mo Xia both had extremely strong spiritual senses, and they had already sensed that there was something wrong with that cripple. Ever since he came in, the two of them had already noticed it. Jun Mo Xia's mouth even curled into a sinister smile as he quietly drank his tea. Although they were not 100% sure, they guessed that this lame man was most likely the supreme killer Chu Chihuan. Chapter 613. The three men from the illusory ocean of blood also sensed that there was something wrong with the cripple. But after a round of questioning, they found nothing. Although they were the strongest in the world, they lacked Jun Moxie's superhuman senses, and were far from Mei Shuyan's level. So, they slowly let down their guard. How strong are those two bosses? Why can't I see it? Are they stronger than me? Mei Shuyan transmitted her voice to Jun Moxie. Jun Mo Xia scratched his head and said, These two people might be formidable, but they aren't that strong. They probably aren't as strong as you. But, they are definitely stronger than me. The reason why you can't see through their strength is because they have a special technique that allows them to perfectly conceal their aura, and not even the slightest bit of it is exposed. However, these two people are obviously not from the three holy lands. If something unforeseen happens here, I believe that the biggest variable will be these two old men. Jun Moxie didn't know that while they were talking, the two old men were also secretly transmitting their voices to each other. Who are the young man and woman inside? Any one of them is very dangerous. The other man said, Yes, if something happens here, I believe these two young men will be the biggest variable. But, where did these two outstanding young men come from? This is a tough question for an old man like me. The people from the illusory ocean of blood don't seem to have noticed. That cripple is not simple. Don't worry about these things. As long as they don't provoke us, they can fight as much as they want. It's none of our business. Don't bother with other people's business. The two old men continued to lie on the counter, pretending to sleep. The people from the illusory ocean of blood are here. If that cripple is really Chu Chihuan, why is he here? Isn't this like sending a lamb to the tiger's mouth? One had to know that those were three superior supreme masters. Although Chu Chihuan is strong, it's not wise for him to fight one against three. Mei Shuyan frowned. It's not a hypothesis, it's a certainty. If this cripple wasn't Chu Chihuan, I would eat this plate whole. Although none of you can sense it, I can clearly sense the bloodthirst that is ingrained in his bones. Hitman Jun smiled coldly and slowly said, I'm not surprised that he's here. In fact, he's here for those three people from the illusory ocean of blood. It seemed that this king of assassins was finally anxious from being hunted down. This time, it's just a simple revenge operation. Not bad, not bad. That's how it should be. Mei Shuyan nodded in agreement. But, I really can't figure out how he is going to defeat 3 superior Supreme Masters by himself. With Chu Chihuan's strength, it's already quite lucky for him to be able to kill one of them. It's still the same old saying, there are only things that can't be imagined in this world, but there is nothing that can't be done. People like you will never understand the methods of a truly brilliant assassin. Jun Moxie smiled confidently. Since Chu Chihuan dared to come, then these 3 people will die without a doubt. I just want to see, the 3 holy lands have already laid out an inescapable net here. After he kills these 3 people, how will he be able to avoid being seen by others and escape? You must know that Chu Chihuan will have to pay a considerable price to kill these 3 people. However, this supreme assassin is really courageous. He actually dared to jump out. Mei Shuyan smiled sweetly. Humph, even a rabbit will bite when it's cornered. Chu Chihuan is being hunted down for no reason at all. How can he not be angry? He's a supreme assassin of his generation, but he's being forced to act like a stray dog. He's been holding his breath for a long time. Jun Moxie said sympathetically. You're the main culprit. You're actually crying crocodile tears here. If Chu Chihuan really has the ability to assassinate a supreme assassin, and he finds out afterwards that the person who framed him is that person, do you think he'll let you go? Even if you have the confidence to deal with him, what about the others? Mei Shuyan looked at him disdainfully. In order to prevent such a thing from happening, I definitely won't stay out of this world's affairs. Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't say that I'm going to do anything to Chu Chihuan. Let's not talk about anything else. If such an assassin really dies, it'll be a pity. There will be many less wonderful things in this world. What I'm trying to say is that I'll lend him a hand. It'll be a little compensation. I'll let this guy deal with these 3 people from the illusory ocean of blood as soon as possible. At least there will be fewer casualties. I feel that the purple robe of the ocean of blood is an eyesore. Jun Moxie chuckled and suddenly stood up. He shouted unreasonably, that cripple. Fuck. Can't you fucking stop smacking your lips while eating? Listening to your voice, not to mention eating, this young master feels like vomiting. As soon as this sentence came out, a few people in the tavern looked over with disdain. The other party is already in such a miserable state, and you still want to hit him when he's down? The cripple was startled. He raised his head and looked as if he was about to cry. He said hoarsely, I have nothing left. I've lost half of my life. Can't I even decide how I eat? What kind of world is this? Is there still any justice in this world? This sentence could be said to make people cry. Coupled with his extremely miserable appearance, it was enough to make even the most cold-blooded person in the world sigh in pity. Dongfang Wen Xian frowned and looked at her son. Although she was a little confused, she knew that her son was not someone who would hit someone when they were down. Or perhaps, her son had his own reasons. So she didn't say anything to stop him, but just watched coldly from the side. Mei Shuyan secretly praised. Although Dongfang Wen Xian's cultivation of Xian Qi was not high, his calmness, magnanimity, and wisdom were not something an ordinary person could compare to. She had already prepared to mediate, but who would have thought that Dongfang Wen Xian would not say a word and only ponder, which saved her a lot of trouble. Fuck. It's your own business that you're unlucky. Is your crippled leg or half of your life a reason to disgust this young master? What a joke, what a fucking joke. Jun Moxie's attitude could be said to be getting worse and worse. After changing his appearance, his sallow face was filled with a violent aura. He was like a nouveau riche who came out with a mountain of gold on his back. He took 2 steps forward and kicked the brazier. The firewood that was burning in the brazier jumped out, and sparks flew in all directions. Hurry up and fuck off. Don't annoy this young master here. Fuck, ever since a cripple like you came in, this house has become like a pigsty. How do you expect this young master to eat? How do I eat? Jun Moxie twisted his neck and squinted his eyes. He put one hand on his waist and roared, hurry up and fuck off. If you don't, I'll break your remaining leg and your third leg. You're a fucking dung beetle on the dining table, it's disgusting if you don't eat. Just as Hitman Jun had guessed, this cripple was the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan. During this period of time, Chu Chihuan had been chased to the ends of the earth, and he had had enough. Damn it, the tiger doesn't show its power and treats me like a sick cat. So what if it's the three holy lands? You don't even want to listen to my explanation. Damn it, don't tell me that I'm called the supreme assassin for nothing. Supreme Chu Chihuan, who had been oppressed to the extreme, finally exploded. He also knew that if he continued to be chased like this, only death awaited him. But even if I die, I'll drag a few more down with me. If I kill one, I'll break even. If I kill more, I'll make a profit. Therefore, after being chased to this place, Chu Chihuan finally decided to launch a counterattack. It was an extremely vicious and desperate counterattack. He had seen the three experts from the illusory ocean of blood enter the tavern, so he had followed them in. The fire of vengeance in his heart had already been ignited. But now, Supreme Chu Chihuan was extremely depressed. He had managed to sneak in with great difficulty, and had even avoided the interrogation of those three guys. As long as he waited for those three guys to eat and drink to their heart's content, and when their vigilance was at its lowest, he would have made his move. But out of nowhere, this stupid kid had popped up. He even wants to take care of me while I'm eating. This is really fucked up. For a moment, he stared at the sallow-faced kid in front of him, and didn't react. This kind of bastard kid, I can kill him with one finger on a normal day. But I still have three superior supremes behind me. It's easy for me to kill him, but once I'm exposed, it won't be difficult for those three guys behind me to kill me. For a moment, this wise and resourceful supreme killer actually called out to the heavens in his heart, does the heavens really want to destroy me? At such a critical moment, such a stupid upstart had actually popped up. Do I really want to let go of such a good opportunity? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Do you think I'm good looking? Is good looking for you to look at? You still want to look at me? Jun Moxie roared fiercely, and reached out to push Chu Chihuan's shoulder, causing him to stagger a few steps back, and almost fall to the ground. But in such an awkward situation, Chu Chihuan suddenly felt inexplicably shocked. The position of this push had pushed him to the position where it was easiest for him to attack. Moreover, the force contained in this push just happened to tilt his body slightly, and even the swing of his arm was at the position where it was easiest for him to grasp the hilt of his sword. Could it be? Fuck. You're actually so fucking strong. Jun Moxie exclaimed in a strange voice, and slapped hard on his face. Chu Chihuan exclaimed, and intentionally or unintentionally took another step back, and his body was already less than 3 steps away from the 3 purple-robed people's table. One of the purple-robed people frowned, and Lengleng shouted, enough. And at this delicate moment, Jun Moxie suddenly flew up and kicked Chu Chihuan's belly. Chu Chihuan screamed, and rolled on the ground, and actually got under the table of the 3 purple-robed people. This position was 10 times more ideal than the most ideal position in Chu Chihuan's plan. And, in the eyes of outsiders, this was completely an accident, a 100% accident. The perfect cooperation of the 2 kings of assassins from 2 different worlds was achieved in a situation of pure tacit understanding. Oh no. The 2 old men behind the counter looked up at the same time, and their faces changed color, and said the same word at the same time. One of the purple-robed people slammed the table, and stood up, and said angrily, bastard. Do you want to die? How dare you be so presumptuous? This sentence was directed at Jun Moxie. Before he could finish his sentence, under the table, an extremely bright and gentle light slowly unfolded, like a dream or illusion. There was a scream, and blood splattered everywhere. A figure with dreamy sharp sword light broke through the dining table, and rose up into the sky. Countless bright lights sprinkled on the heads and throats of the 3 purple-robed people at the same time. This kick of Jun Moxie directly announced the death sentence of the 3 masters above Supreme Master. The Autumn Dew Invincible Sword, dreamlike and illusory. Chapter 6:14. Under the table, blood splattered everywhere. A total of 5 legs were severed at the same time. Only the purple-robed man who had stood up and reprimanded Jun Mo Xia was slightly faster. He hastily dodged, and only one of his legs was severed. The thick smell of blood spread out. It was too sudden. It was too shocking. He didn't know if he knew about what Chu Chi Hun had said about his crippled leg, but these 3 supreme-level experts definitely knew about it. They had experienced it firsthand. Such an unexpected turn of events caught everyone off guard. Even a Supreme Master would be affected by the precise cooperation of the 2 King of Assassins. The other 2 purple-robed men were still sitting there calmly. They even had wine bowls in their hands and were looking at them with interest, as if they were watching a show. They really didn't want to interfere in the competition between these small fries. Who knew that all of a sudden, such a shocking change would befall them? And it was such a cruel change. Instantly disabled. At this moment, they even felt a chill below their knees, and the carefree feeling of their blood gushing out. They didn't even have time to feel the pain. However, Chu Chi Hun's sword light had already descended from the sky. The sword light on the table was hazy and dreamy, and under the table was a sea of blood. The scene at this moment was exactly the place where the 3 purple-robed men came from, the illusory blood sea. And it was the real illusory blood sea. With 2 miserable howls, the faces of the 2 Supreme Masters who had their legs severed were twisted. They slapped the chairs under them, and half of their bodies flew up in the air to meet Chu Chihuan's dazzling sword light. The last strike of their lives. Their chests, foreheads, and faces were bleeding profusely. Under Chu Chi Hun's sudden attack, both of their legs had been chopped off, and then their bodies had been pierced by the sword. At this moment, they were completely drenched in blood. At this moment, in order to seek revenge, 2 pillars of blood spurted out from their severed legs. In Jun Moxie's eyes, he was like an Astro Boy with chicken blood tied to his body. The once warm and peaceful tavern had instantly turned into an Azura hell. A large amount of blood sprayed onto the dishes and wine bowls on the tables. Everyone's eyes were wide open. They were so shocked that they couldn't move. Everyone was petrified. The superior supreme expert who had just stood up swayed and his face instantly turned ashen. He roared in anger and a dazzling cold light appeared in his hand, flying towards Chu Chihuan who was in midair. Chu Chihuan did not say a word. In midair, the Autumn Dew invincible sword mysteriously appeared and then mysteriously disappeared. His body also seemed to be faintly discernible in the sword light. Occasionally, when he stretched his body, countless afterimages of Chu Chihuan would appear in the air. Jun Moxie finally understood why this guy had to take the blame every time he made a move, because the way the 2 of them fought was too similar. The way Chu Chihuan fought was too similar to the way he used the yin-yang escape to assassinate. Sometimes on the left, sometimes on the right, looking ahead, looking behind, this guy was really a good scapegoat. Jun Moxie watched the show with interest. Puff! Puff! The 2 purple-robed men in the air fell like broken kites. There was a glaring hole in their throats. On Chu Chihuan's body, there were also a few spots of blood spurting out. But his expression did not change. His long sword flew out from the ethereal, shining brilliance. With a snap, it clashed with the long sword that was stabbing towards him. Slowly, it landed on the table. He stood with the sword in his hand. The Autumn Dew invincible sword drooped down in his hand. A drop of blood dripped into a wine bowl, stirring up waves of ripples. Supreme Killer. Chu Chihuan. Good move, good scheme. After all, the remaining Superior Supreme only had 1 leg left. He barely managed to stand up after being hit by the counterattack of the long sword. Gritting his teeth, he looked at Chu Chi Hun as if he was about to eat him alive and asked word by word through gritted teeth. It was as if he was about to go crazy from the hatred in his heart, looking at Chu Chi-hun as if he was going to eat him alive. One of his legs was chopped off at the knee. Even his robe was cut off. Blood was still dripping. But he had already used a secret technique to stop the bleeding. At this moment, he was only standing on one leg, looking at Chu Chi-hun with hatred. Even after suffering such a heavy injury, his expression did not change. Yes. Now that you have lost one leg, do you know how hard it is to walk in the world? Chu Chi-hun's voice had also changed. It became gloomy, like a chilly wind blowing against one's face, bringing with it a cruel killing intent. His eyes were no longer cloudy and became as sharp as a knife. He stared deeply at the remaining superior supreme in front of him. The three holy lands are only so. Han Shanzhang, you dare to chase after me. The three holy lands will pay the price. You are dead. Dead? Ha, how can a frog at the bottom of a well know how big the Milky Way is? Now that you have been exposed, there is no room for you to hide. It is still unknown who will be the winner. Chu Chi-hun, you are just an arrogant person. You think too highly of yourself. Today, I will let you see what a real strong person's means are. If you can reach the peak of the strong just by relying on the ghost-killing technique in the shadows, what is the use of righteousness? Can you resist the evil ways and the demons in your heart? The one who will die is you. Han Shanzhang laughed and his eyes flashed. Although the ghost-killing technique may not be able to reach the peak of the strong, it can kill people like you who claim to have righteousness but only know how to boast. Chu Chi-hun's eyes were as sharp as knives. Han Shanzhang, your leg has been cut off by me. Your blood and meridians are all cracked. You can no longer self-destruct. I respect that you are a supreme master, which is also a prominent figure. You, kill yourself. You are no match for me now. Ha, the three of us have the same fate. Since the two of them have gone to the underworld, I have no intention to continue to live. But before I die, I want to know one thing. He suddenly turned his head and looked at Jun Moxie fiercely. Who are you? Why do you cooperate with Chu Chi-hun to fight against the three holy lands? Do you know what kind of price you will pay? Who am I? Jun Moxie looked at the blood on the ground in shock. Then, he suddenly lost his head out of fear and shouted, "Murder! Murder! Help! It's so scary. No matter who you are. No matter whether you did it on purpose or not, you and your family are dead. Those who make mistakes will always pay the price." Han Shanzhang was so angry that he trembled. He stared at Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao fiercely. Then he suddenly turned around and faced Chu Chi-hun with his long sword. He suddenly roared and shouted, "Chu Chi-hun, please accompany me for this journey." The biggest enemy in front of him was still Chu Chi-hun. As for this young man, even if he was really the subordinate of the Supreme Killer, he was still an ant. As long as he could survive in the end, he would not be able to escape even if he went up to heaven or down to hell. Han Shanzhang's sudden long roar was imbued with his peak level of dark force cultivation. With a boom sound, a big hole appeared in the tavern. The sound waves rolled out and the mountains and valleys began to echo at the same time. The snowflakes that filled the sky were actually bounced back, and none of them could fall through the big hole that was created. Chu Chi-hun's eyes turned cold, and the autumn dew invincible sword drew a dreamy color. Lengleng said, "The people from the three holy lands are really extraordinary. Just now you were still speaking so passionately, but now you are asking for help. Ha, it turns out that superior supreme experts also know how to ask for help. You still have the nerve to say that you will live and die together. It's really an eye-opener for me, an evil person. Do you think you can escape like this?" Before the voice died away, Chu Chi-hun's body suddenly made a move, as if he was about to rush over. Han Shanzhang shouted and stabbed with his long sword. But just as he stabbed with his long sword, he suddenly found that the body of Chu Chi-hun, who was rushing over with an unstoppable momentum, suddenly disappeared into thin air. The figure that was rushing forward abruptly disappeared. At the same time, an extremely sharp sword wind attacked him from behind. Han Shanzhang was also a top expert in the world. Facing this sudden change, although he was shocked, he did not panic. He roared again and quickly retreated against the sword wind without dodging. His back was filled with the purest dark force, and at the same time, he pushed out with both hands. This was a desperate way to perish together with the enemy. Bang! Chu Chihuan's body flew up from the ground and he spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. This was the only serious injury that Chu Chihuan had suffered in this sniper battle. He took advantage of the momentum and flew out of the snow hole on the roof. With a dreamy hazy sword light, he flashed and disappeared in the sky full of snow. One hit to kill, and then immediately retreated 1,000 miles away. This was the style of the king of assassins. Jun Moxie clearly felt that the moment Chu Chihuan rushed out of the snow hole, his sharp eyes looked deeply at him. That simple glance actually contained many deep meanings. There was some gratitude, some resentment, some suspicion, and even a little bit of amazement. Chu Chi-hun understood very well that the firewood in the brazier spurted out with that kick had blocked his unfavorable position. That push had allowed him to get closer to his target. Then, the backhand slap had given him the most reasonable opportunity to take a step back. That last kick had brought all of the effects of the previous 3 actions to full play. First, it made the opponent underestimate him. Second, it made the opponent look down on him. With these 2 points, when facing a top assassin, he would have lost 90% of his life. But that last kick had turned everything into an accident. That was why Chu Chihuan could succeed in one hit and kill 3 superior supreme martial artists at lightning speed. These 4 simple actions, coupled with the perfect hoodlum actions, had seamlessly formed a fatal trap, advancing step by step. Gradually advancing. Chapter 6:15. And at the last step of the plan, the target was still in a dream, watching the show from the sidelines. How could he not die? The grasp of this foresight, the subtlety of this psychological warfare, the dexterity and adaptability of this arrangement were all amazing. Chu Chihuan admitted that if he were in the opponent's shoes, he would not be able to do all this. This was simply the ultimate killing method that only the god of killers could use. Killing people invisibly, and it was killing people invisibly with a borrowed knife. At the moment when Chu Chihuan left, a sudden fear surged in his heart. What if this person is the opponent's? Thinking of this, he felt a chill on his back and sped up to disappear in the snow. Chu Chihuan went far away. It was not until this moment that Han Shanzhang, who had stabilized his body with one leg, slowly fell to the sky. An arrow of blood shot out from his chest and back at the same time. His eyes were wide open, and a gurgling sound came from his throat. Then, he fell to the ground with a bang. His dead fish eyes looked at Jun Mo as he struggled to ask, "Who are you?" "Me? I'm a human." Jun Moxie seemed to be a little frightened. "What I'm asking is, who exactly are you?" Han Shanzhang's eyeballs bulged out more and more, and the blood spurting from his chest had slowly become bloody foam. "I'm a man," Jun Mo replied in a very honest and accurate manner. "You?" Han Shanzhang was so angry at this honest and accurate truth that his body jumped on the ground and then fell to the ground. He stopped moving, and breathed his last, "Fuck. I'm telling the truth. Do you think I'm a woman?" Jun Moxie spread his hands and said innocently. He died of anger just like that. How could he be so narrow-minded? Forget it, he can't even beat a disabled person. It's a waste of food to keep him alive. At this moment, the people in the hotel came to their senses from the extreme shock and let out a series of exclamations. It was as if a grenade had been thrown into a public toilet. Everyone was scared out of their wits and ran out. One by one, they charged into the snowstorm outside the door and left, Jun Moxia chuckled and said, "The show has come to an end. Let's go." "Wait. Little brother, you destroyed my shop and killed people. Are you going to leave without a word? Shouldn't you give the two of us an explanation?" Behind the counter, the two old men who had been pretending to sleep finally stood up and looked at Jun Moxie. Of the two old men, one had a red face and big ears, and a dignified appearance, the other had a red nose and was as thin as a skeleton. When they stood together, they contrasted with each other. It was quite comical. They didn't even look at the corpses on the ground, as if they were used to the pungent smell of blood. Both of them looked at Jun Moxie with a hint of vigilance. "Fuck. I say, old man, what kind of look is that? Didn't that disabled person who killed people just fly away? Why didn't you say anything then? Why are you stopping me now? What does this have to do with me? No matter what you say, it doesn't make sense. Even if you want to blackmail someone, you don't have a way to do it, do you? Do you think I'm easy to bully? You're wrong about me." Jun Moxie glared and shouted exaggeratedly. "You can't lie in front of a real person. Little brother, if it wasn't for you, that Chu Chihuan wouldn't have been able to succeed so easily." The red-faced old man smiled. "Little brother, we don't mean any harm by stopping you. We just want to see the prey. Also, I want to ask, who is your master? I don't think there are many people in this world who can train such a young talent like you." This old man is really curious. He smiled, but it looked very strange, as if his face had been split into two halves. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that the center of the old man's face had been deeply slashed by a sword. His entire face had been cut into two halves. But the wound had healed quite well after the incident. If he didn't smile, it would be hard to tell. But when he smiled, his red muscles bulged, making him look even more terrifying. "Who is my master?" "My master is my wife." Jun Moxie laughed and pointed at Mei Xuan. Mei Xuan stood up and slowly walked over. She looked at the red-faced old man with her limpid eyes and finally said in a low voice, "So it's you too. If you didn't smile, I wouldn't have known who you were. Ren Ping Sheng, you're still as crazy as ever. You two have changed a lot, and your martial power has advanced to an astonishing level. I think that Lei Baoyu and Bu Kuang Feng are no match for you now. It's really worth congratulating. May I ask who you are? How do you know these two old men?" The red-faced old man and the red-nosed old man looked at each other. They were shocked. They had been living in seclusion here, and no one had ever seen through their identities. So, how could they not be shocked when such a young girl had revealed their identities? "You don't need to know who I am. But, today's matter isn't something you can interfere with." Mei Xuan said casually, "I believe that the people from the three holy lands will be here soon. Although your strength has improved a lot, and your cultivation has reached a higher level, if you don't want to get into trouble, you should stay out of it. I believe that since you have chosen to live in seclusion here, you have the idea that it's better to stay out of trouble." These two were the supreme masters of the previous generation. They were as famous as Lei Baoyu and Bu Kuang Feng, the two masters of the rainstorm and gale. They were known as the cut through the wind and cloud, cut through the sky, Ren Wu Ping Sheng, Ren Wu Kuang. The red-faced old man was Ren Ping Sheng, and the red-nosed old man was Shen Wu Kuang. Yi Kuang's eyes flashed, and he chuckled, "This old man thanks miss for your concern. Although we may not be able to provoke the three holy lands, if the three holy lands really want to make a move against us, I'm afraid they'll have to think twice." His tone was filled with arrogance, and it was obvious that he was very confident. Mei Xuan was just about to walk out when she suddenly turned around and looked at the two of them. A rare smile appeared on her face. "You're actually so fearless. Could it be that you're already part of the Misty Illusory Manor? Could it be that the entrance to the Misty Illusory Manor is nearby?" That's right, no wonder the two of you could advance so quickly. No wonder the two of you would choose to open a tavern in the middle of nowhere. I thought the two of you had been quiet for too long and wanted to move. So that's why. May I ask who you are? Ren Pingsheng and Xin Wuquang's expressions changed. They flew in front of Mei Xuan, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. At the same time, their clothes began to bulge. It seemed that if Mei Xuan's answer did not satisfy them, they would not hesitate to fight. I am the same as you. Mei Xuan was silent for a while, and said softly, I am from the Tianfa cave. If you go back, please pass on a message for me. So you are from Tianfa. Ren Pingsheng and Xin Wuquang breathed a sigh of relief. They looked at each other and saw the annoyance in each other's eyes. What message? Please speak, Mississippi, we have sacrificed too much in these years. Guarding the secret territory has taken up too much of our energy. And you guys still haven't received any news, and you've even set up that fog of the misty illusory manor. To us, the losses are too great, and we can no longer make ends meet. And now, the three holy lands are even more aggressive. It seems that they will not stop until they destroy the beast kings of Tianfa. If the Misty Mansion still wants to maintain this balance, first, warn the three holy lands to restrain themselves. Otherwise, we, Tianfa, do not mind going to war. Second, remove the fog of the Misty Mansion, let us, Tianfa, restore the inheritance of the Holy King. Mei Xuan said softly, I have been looking for the Misty Mansion for a long time. Do you really not care about the 9 Nether secret territory? When Mei Xuan said this, Jun Moxie actually heard the heartfelt bitterness in her words. Ren Pingsheng and Shen Wuquang looked at each other, and said awkwardly, Miss, what you said is reasonable. But this is not something we can decide. Of course, I know you can't decide. That's why I asked you to pass on a message. If you still do not respond after the war for seizing the heavens, we, Tianfa, will not contribute any more power to the secret territory. Mei Xuan Lengleng said resolutely, for the war for seizing the heavens, we, Tianfa, have put in tens of thousands of years of effort, but now we are being chased by the three holy lands. The 9 Nether secret territory has been guarded since ancient times, and you will only send people to it when it is extremely urgent. In the end, he even set up a trap in the misty illusory manor. Mei Xuan's cold eyes were resolute. Since you don't care about this continent, do you think we, the Xian beasts, care more than you do? To put it bluntly, no matter if the strange races occupy the continent or the 9 Nether secret territory breaks out, our Tianfa forest will still be the Tianfa forest. There will be no change at all. Please pass on this message, word for word. That's all I have to say. Let's go. Mei Xuan said softly to Jun Moxie, and held Dongfang Wenxin's hand. Ren Pingsheng and Yi Jiuquang looked embarrassed and made way for them. When they reached the door, Mei Xuan looked up at the sky full of snow. She suddenly stopped and asked, Yunbi Chen is also in the Misty Mansion, right? He is not here. Yi Jiuquang was startled, and said, the guide had invited Yunbi Chen, but Yunbi Chen refused. Mei Xuan replied indifferently, and with a swoosh, the three of them disappeared from the door. Ren Pingsheng stared blankly at the three of them as they left. Suddenly, he slapped his own mouth and said in annoyance, I'm such a bitch. It would have been better if I had just let them leave. Why did I have to be so curious and ask about their master's background? Now, I've created a Tianfa cave. Chapter 6:16. Yi Yingquang sighed and said, if we report this to the higher-ups, I'm afraid that both of us will be punished. We might even be stripped of our positions here and sent to someone else to take over. However, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. We can focus on improving our cultivation. Ren Pingsheng also sighed and said slowly, Old Quang. Thinking back to the war in which both sides were injured, Feng Yu and Feng Yu entered the hermitage, and we came here by chance to recuperate. Then, we joined the Misty Mansion. How many years has it been? Still Quang looked at the snow in front of him in confusion and murmured, how many years? I've already forgotten. Ren Pingsheng stood beside him and looked at the fluttering snow with him. He sighed and said sadly, actually, I really miss those days. I was so weak, but I could be titled as a supreme martial artist, above millions of people, and roamed the world for decades. Now, my strength is getting higher and higher, but I feel so weak. Old Kwang. Do you think what they said really exists? Still Kwang Lengleng said, don't forget, there are a few old monsters in the Misty Mansion now. This is an indisputable fact. Both of them sighed at the same time. In the distance, purple figures were flying, white robes fluttering, and hemp robes fluttering. The people of the three holy lands were rushing over from the snowstorm. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan were stepping on the sleigh, gliding like the wind on the snowy ground. On Mei Shuyan's back was Dongfang Wen Xian. Jun Moxie wanted to carry him to show his filial piety, but Mei Shuyan forcefully snatched him away. Your son is filial, why can't I, your daughter-in-law, do the same? Dongfang Wen Xian enjoyed the argument between the two. He was very satisfied with lying on his daughter-in-law's back. She thought to herself, this daughter-in-law is so generous and filial, she'll definitely become a good helper for Moxie. I heard that this brat has quite a few lovers. This time, when I go back, I'll check them carefully and use Shui Yan as the standard. On the way, Jun Moxie asked curiously, what Misty Mansion? What secret realm? Why haven't I heard of it before? Shui Yan, and your Tian Fa's bewildering fog, the one I entered before, was it the Misty Mansion bewildering fog? Mei Shuyan was silent for a long time. She lowered her head and hurried on. After a long time, she said, there's no benefit in knowing these things. I'll tell you if I have to. But right now, our level is not high enough. Jun Moxie responded with an, oh, and didn't ask any further. However, his heart was filled with endless mysteries. Mei Shuyan had said countless times before, the previous generation Saint King and Beast King had gone into seclusion because of some accident. Now that he thought about it, they must be in the Misty Mansion bewildering fog. From what she said today, it was probably not that they went into seclusion, but that they couldn't come out after they went in, as for the accident, or the secret realm. But that bewildering fog was indeed powerful. Even with his spiritual sense, he couldn't sense anything. He thought that it was a natural phenomenon, but now he knew that it was actually man-made. This made Jun Moxie a little shocked. In this world, there were still many things that he didn't understand and couldn't understand. As the few of them were moving forward, Jun Moxie suddenly exclaimed and stopped. Right in front of them, on top of a tree, the tree was covered with white snow, and the sky was filled with white snow. A person in snow-white clothes was quietly attached to the tree. His eyes were like cold stars, looking at the three of them indifferently. His whole body seemed to have become one with the white snow. Even if one looked carefully, it would be extremely difficult to distinguish him. This was also because of Jun Dashao's extraordinary spiritual sense. Otherwise, it would be difficult to detect him. Chu Chihuan. He was actually waiting here. You rascal, you were indeed helping me on purpose just now. Chu Chihuan floated down on the snowy ground, but the pure white snow didn't leave a single trace. It was as if Chu Chihuan's entire body was weightless. And Chu Chihuan's eyes were even colder than the icicles. He looked at Jun Moxie, emitting an eerie chill. This sentence seemed to be to express his gratitude, but Chu Chihuan's expression was completely different. It was as if he was here to cause trouble. It's not that I'm helping you on purpose. I just don't want you to die so early. Jun Moxie also said indifferently as he exerted force on his feet. The sled under his feet broke into pieces and flew out with a snap. Facing Chu Chihuan, if he still had this thing tied to his feet, it was tantamount to courting death. Reason? Standing in the snow, Chu Chihuan actually gave people a kind of hazy feeling. It was as if his figure had faded and disappeared at this moment, and then appeared again in the next moment. At this time, he was not disguised, but still gave people a kind of feeling. It was like looking at flowers in the fog, and no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't see clearly what he looked like. Reason? Or? In this world, there are too few assassins who can make people's eyes light up. If the supreme assassin dies one day, there will be many less interesting things in this world. Jun Moxie still spoke abnormally indifferent, but when he said the words, supreme assassin, he suddenly deliberately emphasized it. When he said it word by word, a kind of heavy atmosphere suddenly formed. It was like the originally clear sky, and the sun was shining high up in the sky, but suddenly the curtain of night fell without warning. At this time, he completely put away his playfulness. Although his face was calm, his tone was very serious. For Jun Dashao, this kind of seriousness was really rare. And this rare seriousness seemed to have an extremely desolate aura to it. Mei Shuyan suddenly felt that Jun Moxie had changed. At this moment, it was as if he had become the same as Chu Chihuan. The two of them faced each other like this, and neither of them made the first move. However, they were like two hungry wolves on the prairie, confronting each other fiercely. Both of them wanted to swallow the other into their stomachs. The two of them were like the two sharpest swords, hanging in the same room. They left their scabbards in the middle of the night, and roared like dragons and tigers, all for the sake of competing between the two swords, who was the sharpest. One was a peerless sharp weapon, brilliant and brilliant, the other was a rare and extraordinary weapon, showing off its edge. Both of them carried extreme self-confidence, a kind of bloodthirst that believed that they could kill anyone in the world. This reason is not bad. Chu Chihuan, who was in the snow, seemed to lower his head and smile. Then he suddenly raised his head, and two sword-like eyes pierced through the snow and fog, shooting straight at Jun Moxie's face. The person who has been framing me, is it you? That's right and wrong. The person involved in this matter is indeed me, but no matter how you look at it, it can't be considered framing me. Jun Moxie smiled and said softly, I think you should be grateful to me, because I helped you achieve your unparalleled prestige. An immortal legend. As he said that, he suddenly raised his head, and his two eyes were like thunder and lightning, meeting Chu Chihuan's eyes. 4 pairs of eyes met, and both of them felt pain in their eyes at the same time. But neither of them gave way, and they stared at each other intently. It's a pity that the unparalleled prestige that you've given me wasn't earned by my own efforts. Chu Chihuan Lenglang looked at him, moreover, this glorious road is not only a dead end, but also a road of no return. If you were me, wouldn't you be grateful? But if you had chosen it yourself, would you have dared to work so hard? Jun Moxie also looked at him coldly, you wouldn't dare. But I dare. Not only do I dare, but I've also done it more than once. But after I've done it, you've been hunted down like a dog. That's the difference between you and me. So, I'm stronger than you. It turns out that we're in the same profession. But to say that you're stronger than me, you're not qualified yet. Chu Chi-hun stared unblinkingly at Jun Moxie's eyes. Although your killing intent is very sharp. Although your murderous aura is very sharp, I'm the supreme assassin in the world. As the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan was naturally very sensitive to the murderous aura of Jun Moxie. Once Jun Moxie's nature was awakened, the first thing he felt was this legendary king among the assassins from the alternate world. Appreciating each other, but also repelling each other. So, Jun Moxie used the word supreme assassin to create a huge momentum, but now Chu Chihuan also used the same words to counterattack. I'm the supreme assassin. The supreme assassin in the world, the #1 assassin, is me, Chu Chihuan, and not someone else. Not even you. Really? But don't you think your so-called murderous aura is too bloodthirsty? Jun Moxie took a step forward slowly, and with a bang, his right foot landed on the ground. At the same time, Chu Chihuan, who was tens of feet in front of him, seemed to have sensed it. His left foot took half a step back, and then he stepped back. But he deviated from his original footprint, and his body changed direction. He turned slightly sideways, facing Jun Moxie. You don't dare to fight? Jun Moxie's lips curled up. Why should I hide? Since you said I framed you, don't you want to take revenge? I always need money to kill people. Even my enemies are no exception. Chu Chihuan said calmly, this is the rule of an assassin. I won't fight without paying the price. Although you caused me to be chased by the 3 holy lands, you've helped me today. Moreover, it's not suitable to fight with you today. First, I've already released my murderous aura. He looked at Mei Shuyan. Lengleng said, second, I have many misgivings. But you don't have these misgivings. But in the end, no matter what the reason is, it's a fact that you don't dare to fight. Jun Moxie said coldly, so, the supreme assassin should be me. Not you. This sentence was like a sharp needle, piercing into Chu Chihuan's heart. Chu Chihuan smiled coldly, and said coldly, the so-called supreme assassin of the world is just an empty title. But the supreme assassin of the world really exists. No one can surpass it. The position of the king is not won with words. It needs to be used with the sword, and it needs to be used to kill. Jun Moc's words pulled Chu Chi-hun, who had thought of retreating, back to his original position. At this moment, the murderous aura from his body rose again. He didn't even bother to conceal it, nor did he consider that doing so would attract enemies. Yes, the king of assassins. Just for the title of king. Although this wasn't a very glorious profession, the two of them had reached the peak of this path. Chapter 617. Jun Moc had Jun Moc's pride. His pride stemmed from the evil monarch's undefeated victories. And Chu Chihuan had occupied the throne of the number 1 assassin for decades, and had a dignity that could not be infringed upon. From the moment the two of them met, they were at each other's throats, all for the sake of giving each other this feeling of unease. It was as if their positions were being seriously threatened. Within Jun Moxie's body, there was a long-lost bloodline flowing. His eyes were getting brighter and brighter, his murderous aura getting thicker and thicker, the bloodthirsty aura emanating from his bones, the crazed desire to kill awakened in his soul. Although I'm an assassin, I'm here now, representing Yan Huang. Behind me, I have 7 billion brothers and sisters. I can't lose. I can't lose. Do you dare to fight? Chu Chihuan suddenly stared straight at him, and said gloomily, let's see who is the king of assassins between you and me. A shocking battle intent suddenly burst forth from this supreme killer. At this moment, it was not killing intent that burst forth. It was fighting intent. Fight. Fight for glory. It's not because you want to fight, but because I want to fight with you. Jun Moxie straightened his back, and his whole body was like a bow that had been pulled into a full moon, and then suddenly returned to its taut state. His eyes shone with a dazzling light, and with strong self-confidence, he suddenly pressed forward, and the reason I want to fight is more important than the whole world. Ha ha ha. Awesome. In my, Chu Chihuan's, life, in terms of strength, there are not many people who can beat me, but they are not rare either. But in terms of killing intent and murderous aura, I have never seen anyone who can beat me. Chu Chihuan laughed heartily, and said, you are the first. Even if you die in battle later, I believe it will be a comfort. It's a pity that the loser of this battle will definitely not be me. In this world, I have fought a fair battle, and you are also the first one. And I believe you are also the only one. Jun Moxie said gloomily, this battle is for the reason in my heart. For the glory of my heart. I will make an exception and grant you a chance to have a fair fight with me. Give me a chance to fight fairly. Chu Chihuan wanted to laugh, but he realized that he couldn't. Because he realized that the other party wasn't joking. From this sentence, Chu Chi-hun could even feel an enormous pressure from the bottom of his heart. Am I the only one to have a fair fight? What kind of explanation was that? What kind of person would say something like that? What kind of person had never faced a head-on battle in their life? Assassin. Only a top-notch ultimate assassin would have this kind of understanding. Only top-notch assassins who walked in the shadows and would deal a fatal blow to their targets once they had the chance to do so. Therefore, it was only when the two top assassin kings met each other that they were most unwilling to resort to conspiracies and sneak attacks. Because this battle had nothing to do with life or death, it was only a battle for supreme glory. At this moment, what Jun Moxie said was the truth. He would never have a fair fight with anyone. His endless tricks allowed him to challenge and kill those who were at a higher level than him. In Jun Moxie's eyes, the so-called fair fight was a stupid way of fighting. Battle was a battle of life and death. Survival of the fittest, where was the fairness? No matter what methods were used, as long as the opponent was killed, he would be the winner. Only the surviving party had the right to say the word fairness. But today, facing Chu Chihuan, Jun Moxie made an exception and used the word fairness to describe the upcoming battle. A fair and square battle. In the name of the descendant of Yen and Huang, as the descendant of the dragon. Take the crown of the king of my profession fairly. Follow me. Since we want a fair fight, we naturally have to find a suitable place. Jun Moxie's figure floated up, riding the wind amidst the snowstorm. His figure was hazy and indistinct like lightning. A white robe separated the snowy sky and disappeared in a flash. Chu Chihuan laughed and his eyes revealed a look of admiration. Then, it turned into a cold and sharp sword aura. His body flew up and disappeared with a swoosh, following Jun Moxie. Shui Yan, isn't there something wrong with Moxie? Dongfang Wen Xian leaned on Mei Shui Yan's back, her brows tightly furrowed, a look of deep thought on her face. Why is it that when Moxie saw this supreme assassin, he seemed to have changed into a different person? Just now. I almost couldn't believe that that was my son, he. Mother, Moxie doesn't care about anything else. He only cares about the word assassin. But, he is very obsessed with it. I don't know why. Mei Shuiyan was worried and said absent-mindedly. Then this fight will be dangerous. Let's go and take a look. Dongfang Wenxin urged. Her eyes were full of anxiety. The reputation of the supreme assassin was comparable to the reputation of the whole Dongfang family. How could it be ordinary? And, I will naturally bring my mother over to help Moxie. However, I believe that Moxie will not let anyone help him in this fight. I can feel it. Mei Shuiyan reminded Dongfang Wenxin tactfully. I can also feel his eagerness for this fight. It seems like this is his biggest dream. And this dream has been going on for a long time. Dongfang Wenxin frowned and sighed deeply. She said with a heartache, what kind of change could make Moxie, the young master of an aristocratic family, become like this? Shui Yan. My son is suffering. My heart hurts. Don't worry. Moxie has absolute confidence. Mei Shuiyan sighed softly. Her slender body swept up. Although she was carrying a living person on her back, she was still as light as a willow catkin. She drifted away like the wind. Behind her, a gentle whirlwind swept up and wiped away all the traces on the ground. There was no longer any trace of someone passing by. Even when Mei Shuiyan had completely disappeared in the snow with Dongfang Wenxin on her back, the small whirlwind behind her did not stop. Although the wind was small, it never stopped spinning. In the end, it suddenly exploded in the air, sweeping away the killing intent and battle intent of the two king of assassins in the air. Jun Moxie took the lead, his silhouette faintly discernible. In a flash, he had covered a distance of several tens of zhang. He was running like a meteor, but his figure seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, confident and elegant. His toes did not seem to touch the ground at all. Only when he passed by a blade of grass or a branch would he lightly tap on it. Then, he would borrow the force to fly away again. Chu Chihuan followed closely behind him. Except for the distance of 7 feet at the beginning, he did not manage to catch up for even an inch. However, Jun Moxie did not manage to widen the distance again either. Chu Chihuan's Qing Gong was really similar to Jun Moxie's yin-yang escape art. During the high-speed movement, his figure was also faintly discernible, appearing and disappearing in a flash, then reappearing and disappearing again, chasing after the blurry figure in front of him. Although Chu Chihuan did not manage to shorten the distance between him and Jun Moxie, the battle intent in his eyes was getting more and more intense. At this moment, the two King of Assassins were fighting for supremacy. It was a contest of movement skills and speed. Only by moving fast and unpredictable could one surprise and kill the target with one strike. Only by moving fast could one kill the target before the enemy could react, and then escape thousands of miles away. Chu Chihuan was now following behind Jun Moxie. It only took him a moment to understand why he was framed. It was so obvious that no matter how he tried to explain, it would be useless. The Qing Gong and Jun Moxie's movement skills were too similar. At this moment, even he himself felt that if the person in front of him attacked him, it would be really unreasonable if he did not take the blame for it. It was too similar. Jun Moxie's movement skills were mysterious and unpredictable. He would appear and disappear in places that others would never think of. On the other hand, Chu Chihuan's movement skills were strange. It was boundlessly strange. It was faintly discernible, and there were layers upon layers of afterimages. It was impossible to figure out which one was his real body. The only difference was that Jun Moxie's movement skills had a trace of faintly discernible aura. It was a phenomenon that shouldn't exist in an assassin's Qing Gong. However, Jun Moxie's movement skills had this kind of aura. On the other hand, Chu Chihuan's movement skills were in line with the principles of the King of Assassins. He was like a ghost shuttling back and forth between day and night. However, the two of them had one thing in common: whether they were flying, leaping up, or landing on the ground, their postures were completely different. At every moment, they would adjust their movements to the best angle of attack. They could draw their swords, strike their palms, kick their legs, and even any part of their body could launch multiple waves of deadly attacks in an instant. Although the two of them were running at full speed, they were also paying attention to each other's movements. From the beginning until now, the two of them had developed a kind of admiration for each other. It was like being at the top of a mountain. Just when you were feeling proud and complacent, you suddenly found out that there was someone else at the top of the mountain who was also feeling complacent. You couldn't help but feel a kind of "I'm not lonely" mentality at the same time. This was a very strange mentality. Speaking of which, whether it was Jun Moxie or Chu Chihuan, these two people's martial arts skills were not the best in this world. In fact, compared to the real experts at the top, they were not just one level lower. But these two people's vigilance, grasp of propriety, choice of attack angle, and high level of vigilance had truly reached the peak. Chapter 618. Fifth chapter. Physically and mentally exhausted, the dense forest beneath them flashed by, the grassland beneath their feet disappeared without a trace, the mountains and boulders were instantly left far behind. The further they went, the more desolate and desolate it became. Along the way, he didn't know how far he had run. Under the guidance of Jun Moxie, the three of them formed a straight line, passing through the wind and snow. Dongfang Wen Xian, who was on Mei Shuyan's back, was gradually surprised. His daughter-in-law was really amazing. Carrying such a big person on her back, she had run for at least a few hundred miles, and her speed didn't decrease at all. Her breath was long and relaxed, as if she didn't expend any energy. She wasn't any slower than the two guys in front of her, and even had a lot of energy left over. If she really exerted her strength, she could easily catch up with the two guys in front of her. Lying on her back, he watched the mountains and trees turn into blurry shadows that passed by him at high speed. This kind of speed was as fast as lightning, but he didn't feel the wind and snow blowing on his face at all. He didn't feel it at all. It was as if he was sitting peacefully at home. If he hadn't been worried about his son, even if he had really fallen asleep, he wouldn't have been woken up by the jolting. It seemed that the level of his daughter-in-law's Xian cultivation had definitely reached the peak of perfection, and could only be stronger than his son's. I really don't know how my son flirts with girls. He's actually so valiant to be able to bring such a perfect girl who has the combination of beauty, magic skills, personality, temperament, and demeanor into his home. He's really a promising man. Dongfang Wen Xian didn't know that she had underestimated a few things. This good daughter-in-law was also the #1 person in Tian Fa, the current leader of the world, the supreme ruler of one of the 3 saints and 1 ferocious beasts. If he knew all these, maybe Dongfang Wen Xian would faint. There was a big slanting valley in front of them, and Jun Moxie's figure landed here without hesitation. Chu Chihuan followed behind, and his body floated down like a willow catkin along with the snowflakes. When he landed, he saw that Jun Moxie was already standing in front of him. Jun Moxie's blade-like eyes were glinting coldly as he looked at him. Not bad speed. Such a good movement technique. The two of them spoke at the same time. While they were praising him, there was a hint of unwillingness in their tone. Both of them were well aware that in this competition of speed, the two of them were tied. Jun Moxie didn't shake off Chu Chihuan, and Chu Chihuan didn't catch up with Jun Moxie either. In terms of movement techniques, the two of them were about the same. Mei Xuan carried Dongfang on her back and rushed over like a puff of smoke. She landed a few hundred feet away from them. He stopped quietly. Just as Dongfang and Wenxin had judged, Mei Xuan's Qinggong was better than the two of them. However, she didn't want to interrupt the competition, so she didn't use her Qinggong to its fullest. Before this, Jun Moxie had used his actions to show his sincerity. The first competition of speed and movement techniques was also a hint to Mei Xuan. I don't want anyone to interfere. Jun Moxie's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Suddenly, he smiled, and his handsome face revealed a cold-blooded cruelty. Chu Chihuan, let me see your martial arts. Chu Chihuan's face turned pale, and he said calmly, I want to see it. Both of them didn't make the first move. They just stood facing each other, but suddenly, they moved almost at the same time. Chu Chihuan dashed forward, and his pair of iron fists smashed the snowflakes in the air. It was unstoppable. Jun Moxie also dashed forward quickly. The two of them were like two speeding trains, and they were about to collide in the middle. However, at the last moment when the two of them were about to collide, their figures flashed strangely. Jun Moxie disappeared first, and at the same time, Chu Chihuan also disappeared suddenly. The battlefield seemed to have become empty. However, in the middle of the battlefield, the sound of punches and kicks could be heard continuously. The snowflakes on the ground suddenly flew up, and the sound of punches and kicks could be heard hundreds of times per second. However, the two of them didn't show their bodies. They just rolled around in the air, invisible and traceless. However, the strong wind was blown away, and the snowflakes that fell would break into pieces and float back up. Gradually, a thick wall of snow was formed in the air. It was pushed up by the two of them, and it actually became solid in the air. Bang! With a loud bang, two white figures appeared at the same time. They broke through the wall of snow above their heads at almost the same speed, and in the process, they were still attacking crazily. Every attack was aimed at the opponent's fatal point. Once any of the attacks landed, at least one of them would be crippled. Jun Moxie's palm was ethereal and illusory. Halfway through, his palm suddenly turned into a claw, and fiercely stabbed at Chu Chihuan's throat. Chu Chihuan raised his right arm and blocked his throat, while his left fist rushed out like lightning, aiming at Jun Moxie's temple. Jun Moxie tilted his head, and kicked 3 times silently, aiming at Chu Chihuan's 3 vital acupoints, Zhongji, San Yuan, and Dan Tian. All of them were fatal acupoints. As long as any one of them was hit, Chu Chihuan would be dead. At the same time, Jun Moxie's first palm met with Chu Chihuan's arm. Bang! Bang! 3 sounds followed, and both of them somersaulted at the same time, and stood steadily on the snowy ground. It turned out that the 3 kicks from Jun Moxie just happened to meet the 3 sneak attacks from Chu Chihuan. Chu Chihuan praised in his heart. He had nearly 100 years of fighting experience, and every time after a battle, he would ponder over it for a long time, and improve many of his deadly combat techniques. But now, facing his opponent, he actually couldn't gain the upper hand. And the battle was far from over. It was just the beginning. Jun Moxie had just stood on the opposite side, and with a sway of his body, he turned into a gust of wind. Chu Chihuan shouted coldly, but this time, he didn't use his body movement skills. Instead, he spun rapidly on the spot like a top. His hands and feet were like the 1,000-armed guanyin, and layers of strange lotus flowers bloomed to protect his body, while he counterattacked with all his strength. Around Chu Chihuan's body, a small tornado suddenly formed, whirling and whirling. Streams of energy surged out from this shapeless tornado. Attacks were launched from all directions, and even from the top of the head and the soles of the feet, using all kinds of methods. The tornado brought along a thick layer of snow, and suddenly flew up, becoming thicker and thicker. The white snow piled up like a white dragon, dancing wildly in the 9 heavens. Bang, 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 a series of continuous attacks. A continuous series of explosions rang out. Finally, a muffled groan. The snow column suddenly scattered, and Jun Moxie appeared. Opposite him, Chu Chihuan staggered 3 steps back, and his robe split open with a bang, and a clear palm print floated down. 2 trembling sounds came from his back, and 2 palm prints fell off his robe like leaves. Chu Chihuan snorted coldly, took a deep breath, and suddenly shouted, "You, take one of my moves." His body jumped up, and disappeared in a flash in the air. This time, it was Jun Moxie who was in charge of defense. Just like Chu Chihuan, Jun Moxie did not use his strange body movement skills to disappear, but instead, he moved around in a small area, and his feet quickly changed his position. His body suddenly flew up, and suddenly fell down. When he flew up, he would reach a height of 10 feet, and when he landed, he would be as small as a dwarf. The continuous sounds of attacks and collisions were like the wind blowing on lotus leaves, and the rain hitting on banana leaves. It was continuous, dense, and unending. Finally, Jun Moxie let out a "ha," and his feet slid straight out of the space of 7 feet, as if he was stepping on a slide. At the same time, Chu Chihuan's figure also appeared, and his eagle-like eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. 2 almost inaudible sounds were heard, and a palm-shaped rag fell from Jun Moxie's left shoulder. At the same time, 2 thin pieces of cloth floated down from his calf. Chu Chihuan's 2 most powerful palms forced Jun Moxie to fly up 10 feet into the air helplessly. And because of this, the 2 palms that should have hit his back instead hit his calf. In terms of fighting, I lost. Chu Chihuan looked a little sad, but the next moment, he raised his head. Although there was still a trace of disappointment on his face, there was not a trace of shame. His eyes were still full of fighting spirit, and they were burning like fire, but as calm as ice. "Thank you for letting me win. I won by luck." Jun Moxie's expression was not good either. Just now, he had used 8 trigrams Wandering Body Palm, Shaolin's Dragon Capture Skill, 18 Arhat Fists, and was even forced to use Tan Tui Hong Fist and Long Fist. He had used a total of 37 fist techniques and palm techniques. Only then did he manage to fend off Chu Chihuan's storm-like attacks. In the end, both of them were hit by 3 palms each, and Chu Chihuan was hit on his chest and back. They were all fatal spots. But Jun Moxie was hit on his shoulder and calf. It was clear at a glance. There was no doubt that Jun Moxie had the upper hand, and the victor was clear. If they really fought to the death, while Chu Chihuan would definitely die, Jun Moxie would also be heavily injured and crippled. Although being crippled was better than dying, it was still not a complete victory. So, when Jun Moxie said that he won by luck, he meant it from the bottom of his heart. Of course, if they really fought to the death, Jun Moxie only needed to use the yin-yang escape or the 5 elements technique that he hadn't used in this fight. But this fight was related to the title of King of Assassins, so Jun Moxie wanted to use his true strength to completely convince Chu Chihuan. If he were to lose in such a dubious manner, this arrogant supreme assassin would never be convinced even if he were to die. Sword. Chu Chihuan stretched out his hand, and the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword suddenly appeared in his hand with a dreamy light. The blade of the sword spun slightly, and the snowflakes in the sky became a beautiful scene from a dream. One battle to decide the winner. The winner lives, and the loser dies. Chu Chihuan said solemnly, and his eyes shone brightly. If that's the case, you will lose for sure. Jun Moxie smiled evilly, and he stretched out his hand. Clang! The sound of the sword was crisp, clear, and loud. An unparalleled sword aura also appeared in Jun Moxie's hand abruptly. A snow-white long sword was held in his hand quietly. The body of the sword was silver, and light flowed around it, reflecting the faint color of blood. The sword aura flickered, and an indescribable aura suddenly spread out. But the target was not Chu Chihuan, but the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword in Chu Chihuan's hand. It was like an emperor who came out for a walk, and suddenly saw his subordinate. This was a kind of aloof arrogance that came from his bones. Even if it was just a casual glance, it would be an invisible pressure. Chapter 6:19. The moment the blood of yellow flame was unsheathed, Chu Chihuan suddenly felt that the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword, which he had relied on for his entire life, had suddenly lost contact with him. Chu Chihuan was shocked, and he almost thought that the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword was no longer in his hands. But the clear feeling in his palms told him that the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword was still in his hands. What is going on? The Autumn Dew Invincible Sword was undoubtedly his most loyal and reliable companion. It was also his trademark as a supreme assassin. Chu Chihuan had always treasured it like his own life. Every time he held it in his hands, he felt a strange connection with it. It was as if he, himself, was this sword. Every time he wanted to kill someone, he would feel as if this sword was crazily thirsting for fresh blood. At that time, there would be a resonance that seemed to belong to the soul of the netherworld. Truly, the man was the sword, and the sword was the man. Man and sword as one, inseparable. But at this moment, that strange feeling actually disappeared without a trace. How is this possible? How can this be? Chu Chihuan felt his palms sweating. At this moment, Chu Chihuan felt for the first time that he had lost confidence in this battle. He had completely lost his confidence. You still want to fight? You've already lost. But you didn't lose to my hands, but to my sword. More accurately, your sword has already submitted to my blood of yellow flame. Jun Moxie had not expected such a situation to occur. Ever since the blood of yellow flame had been tempered by Jun Moxie with the mysterious power of gold, it had developed a spirit of its own. It had never seen any treasured sword of a high enough level flaunt its prowess in front of it. Following the advancement of Jun Moxie's cultivation, the pride of the blood of yellow flame had also risen. It had drawn its sword at this crucial moment, wanting to have a good spar with Chu Chihuan and have a fair duel. Who would have thought that this fellow would create absolute unfairness the moment he drew his sword? It was an overwhelming advantage. The sword descends upon the heavens, the sovereign of 10,000 swords. How could the Xian myriad swords dare to disobey? Although Chu Chihuan hadn't been defeated yet, and he was still brimming with battle intent, the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword in his hand had already submitted to the blood of yellow flame's sword emperor's heavenly might. Under the majestic aura of the blood of yellow flame, there was practically no room for struggle as it was completely subdued by the peerless sharpness of the blood of yellow flame. There was no more murderous aura, no more will to fight. The current Autumn Dew invincible sword in Chu Chihuan's hands was not even as good as a sword forged from ordinary iron. How were they supposed to fight this battle? At this moment, Jun Mo Xia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He even had a very strange feeling. The situation in front of him was like a fight between two rabbits. One of the rabbits looked for the other rabbit to be its helper and was full of confidence. But the opposite rabbit suddenly summoned a big tiger to help it. Wasn't this bullying? Chu Chihuan tried his best to rouse the battle intent in his heart. In fact, that sharp killing intent burst forth, trying to make his sword and himself return to the state where they were one with each other. But all his efforts were in vain. The veins on Chu Chihuan's hand that was tightly gripping the hilt of his sword suddenly bulged out. He still stood there calmly, but he knew that he had lost. And he had lost in an extremely unjust manner, to the point that he had lost without any rhyme or reason. Facing this terrifying assassin who might not have appeared even once in a million years, not to mention losing control of his treasured sword, even the slightest flaw would be enough to defeat him without a doubt. In such a battle between peak assassins, defeat meant death, and certain defeat meant certain death. Your sword is undoubtedly a good sword. Jun Moxie smiled and said. In these years, you've killed countless people and swept across the world. And the sword in your hand has also developed its own spirituality under the nourishment of countless fresh blood. Your sword is also in harmony with your mind, and is connected by blood. It can be said to be a top-notch divine weapon. But even though it's a divine weapon, it's still too immature. So, when it faced the sword in my hand, it would instinctively choose to protect itself. Chu Chihuan frowned, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. He said lightly, "Oh. But, if you're determined to die today, you can stimulate your sword with that kind of tragic mentality, and it can still arouse the tacit understanding between you two. This is also the only way to reconnect with it, and continue this battle. Because even though you don't know, your sword does. Once it comes into contact with my sword, it will instantly break." Jun Moxie smiled lightly and said, "But, in that case, this battle will lose its original meaning. If I fight you with this divine sword, it will be an unfair victory, and it will be a joke. Even though you have the intention to take my life, I only want to determine victory and defeat with you. What I said before, if the supreme assassin dies, there will be many less wonderful things in the world. That was my heartfelt words, and not a casual remark. I really don't want to kill a peerless assassin like you, and I don't want to destroy a treasured sword that already has spirituality." He raised his head and looked at Chu Chihuan. "Chu Chihuan, why don't we call it a day?" He sighed and said, "Actually, I don't want to call it a day more than you do. In life, it's hard to find a good friend, but it's even harder to find a well-matched opponent. I believe you should be able to understand my feelings right now." Chu Chihuan was silent for a while, and said, "You're right. If I force myself to fight at this moment, I'll be overestimating my own strength and seeking my own death. I'll lose the original meaning of this battle, and I'll also lose the most important companion in my life. However, I want to see your sword. I want to know what kind of divine weapon it is, to be able to make my Autumn Dew invincible sword cower before the battle, and surrender without a fight." Speaking of which, this request of Chu Chihuan was an extremely unreasonable one, and could even be said to be ridiculous. A sword that was easy to wield was equivalent to an assassin's second life. How could it be something that others could see just because they wanted to? Just like Chu Chihuan's own Autumn Dew invincible sword, could it be casually shown to others? Let alone Jun Moxie's blood of yellow flame. Actually, Chu Chihuan also knew that his request was a little rash, and even Jun Moxie's rejection was within his expectations. However, he still looked at Jun Moxie without blinking. Because he really couldn't accept his loss. Everyone's strength is roughly on the same level, so why should I lose because of the difference in weapons? Just what is so outstanding about the opponent's sword, to be able to make my Autumn Dew invincible sword bow its head, and even lose before the battle? Chu Chihuan, who had long become one with the autumn dew invincible sword, did not have any longing for the divine weapon in Jun Moxie's hands, but his curiosity was extremely strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such an absurd request. Facing this unexpected request, Jun Moxie fell silent for a moment, before lightly raising the sword in his hand and bringing it to his lips. He said softly, "He can't accept his loss, and wants to see you. Can you?" His voice was strangely gentle, as if he was coaxing a child. The blood of yellow flame clanged in Jun Moxie's hand, and even Chu Chihuan could clearly hear the arrogance and disdain in it. Jun Moxie smiled and said to Chu Chihuan, "You can see, but only through my hand." At this time, Mei Xuan and Dongfang Wen Xian walked over slowly. As they neared, Mei Xuan and Dongfang Wen Xian discovered an extremely unbelievable thing at the same time. Jun Moxie and Chu Chihuan, the two men who were fighting to the death just a moment ago, were actually standing together with their heads facing each other, staring at the sword in Jun Moxie's hand. Especially Chu Chihuan's face, which was filled with an expression of pilgrimage. Such a divine sword was indeed a divine weapon that any Xian cultivator would dream of. It was a good companion that would never leave one's side. What surprised Mei Xuan the most was that Chu Chihuan was completely defenseless, and the hilt of the blood of yellow flame was still in Jun Moxie's hand. If Jun Moxie suddenly launched a sneak attack, Chu Chihuan would definitely not have any chance to escape. He would definitely be cut in half. How could this be? A person with such low vigilance, was he still the king of assassins from before? And there was also Jun Moxie. This fellow had a proud expression on his face, as if he was showing off a treasure, proudly showing off the divine sword in his hand. Similarly, he was also wide open, completely defenseless. What's wrong with these two? Are they crazy? Are they stupid? Did water get into their brains? After a long time, Chu Chihuan forcefully retracted his gaze and took a few steps back. That cold aura appeared on his body again. He raised his face and used his face to welcome the snowflakes in the sky, hoping to calm his burning heart down. He sighed and said, "There's actually such a divine sword in this world. Such a miraculous thing. It's really an eye-opener for me. This round, my defeat is not unjust, and the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword is not unjust either. No, the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword is more insightful than me, and knows when to advance and when to retreat." Jun Moxie chuckled and said, "In this world, there are still many things that you don't know." Chu Chihuan lowered his head sadly, caressing his Autumn Dew Invincible Sword tenderly, a look of deep longing in his eyes. Jun Moxie's blood of yellow flame was undoubtedly a peerless divine weapon in the world, and it was also an invincible treasure. Compared to it, his own sword was undoubtedly far too inferior. But Chu Chihuan felt that his own sword was the weapon that he was most comfortable with. The Autumn Dew Invincible Sword was the most important to him. No matter how good other people's swords are, this sword of mine has accompanied me for many years. An assassin has no family, only a sword. This sword is my family. No divine weapon, no peerless divine weapon can replace it. Chu Chihuan caressed his Autumn Dew Invincible Sword gently. At this moment, he could clearly feel the comfort and excitement coming from the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword. Chu Chihuan was stunned. Previously, he only felt a sense of closeness and familiarity, or perhaps a connection of blood. But he had never felt any emotions from this sword. But today, at this moment, he actually felt it clearly. This sword, just like a human, also had emotions and feelings. Chapter 620. This kind of wonderful feeling caused Chu Chihuan's heart to tremble for a moment. "Since we've decided to stop fighting, I'd like to ask you about something." Jun Moxie also sheathed his divine sword, and kissed the blade. "Ha, you've really made this big brother proud today. I've just unsheathed my sword, and the opponent's sword has already raised a white flag. What's called the graceful bearing of a sword emperor? What's called a sovereign descending upon the world? Isn't this it? I'm really going to die from pleasure today. What's the matter? Chu Chihuan raised his head, and looked at him indifferently. The supreme assassin instantly regained his usual calmness after observing the sword. Since you're called the supreme assassin, then the Blood Sword Hall, which specializes in killing people, and is known as the #1 assassin organization in the Xian continent, are they your people? Jun Moxie asked in a deep voice, and a faint blood-red light flashed in his eyes. Are you looking down on me, or are you thinking too highly of those bastards? Do you think that I, Chu Chihuan, would have any relations with those bastards? They're not even qualified to carry my shoes. Chu Chihuan glared at him with some dissatisfaction. One sword to travel 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles of mountain passes, one man and one sword, enjoying solitude and slaughter. This is me, Chu Chihuan. What bullsh** T Blood Sword Hall? I don't know anything about it. Then I'm relieved. Fortunately, this has nothing to do with you. Otherwise, even if I admire you, you'd still have to die. Jun Moxie relaxed in his heart and said coldly. Ha, even if you don't want to kill me, I'll definitely die this time. I've never had the extravagant hope that I'll still be alive after this. Chu Chihuan laughed heartily, his expression calm. It's really not easy to take the blame for this. In order to kill me, the 3 Holy Lands have already sent out no less than 300 experts. I hid in a densely populated area from the mountainous area, and then I was chased out again. The encirclement gradually tightened, and now I'm confined to this corner. Previously, it could be said that I've taken the blame for you, but now, I've really taken care of 3 supreme masters from the illusory Blood Sea. There's no room for negotiation between the two sides. This stretch of several thousand miles of mountains and rivers, I don't know where the feng shui is good enough to bury me, Chu Chihuan. He was talking about his own life and death, but his expression did not change. He was still cold and natural, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. As the king of assassins, he was already indifferent to life and death. Whether it was the life and death of others or their own, it was the same. Then why don't you hide in the downtown area? Although it is difficult to hide in the court, it is not a bad place to hide in the city. Jun Moxie asked. How can I, Chu Chihuan, be that kind of person who steals from others? I, Chu Chihuan, am an assassin. I've killed good people, and I've killed bad people. But, there has never been an innocent person who died for me. Although I kill people like flies, those who died because of me died under my sword. They died under my hands. Chu Chihuan's expression was cold and indifferent, but his eyes flashed with pride. This is what an assassin is. If one day, I really die under someone else's hands, I won't complain. Chu Chihuan smiled coldly. Since I've come out to kill, then I should be prepared to be killed at any time. This kind of thing, to put it bluntly, is not a big deal. You're also an assassin, don't you understand this? Jun Moxie was silent. How could he not understand this? Just like Jun Moxie had his own principles, Chu Chihuan also had his own pride that belonged to him, Chu Chihuan. Just like what Chu Chihuan had said, the strength of the 3 Holy Lands this time was too strong. Even he and Mei Xuan did not have the confidence to face them head-on. They could only hide and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Not to mention Chu Chihuan. It was not easy for Chu Chihuan to be able to hold on until now. Relying on assassination, he might be able to deal with 1 or 2 of them. But, if the other party had the chance to stall for a while, hundreds of strong experts would rush over immediately. So what if Chu Chihuan's skills were exquisite? After all, he could not hide in the Hongjun Pagoda like Jun Moxie and disappear without a trace, completely disappearing from this world, just like the battle the other day. If not for Jun Moxie's help to create the most suitable atmosphere, Chu Chihuan would not have been able to kill 2 people and 1 person in 1 move. According to Chu Chihuan's original plan, even if he attacked when they were unprepared, he would at most be able to kill 1 person. After that, he would be lucky to retreat. How could he kill 3 strong enemies like this? Before this, I am not willing to die like this. Because I still do not know who is the one who framed me. So I want to know, I want to understand the truth. Chu Chihuan looked at Jun Moxie surprisingly warmly. Now, this wish of mine has finally been fulfilled. To be able to see you before I die, I am very gratified. Perhaps your identity is not an assassin, but you are the strongest assassin I have ever seen in my life. Perhaps you are even stronger than me. Because you are much younger than me. I only hope that you can promise me one thing. Chu Chihuan's eagle-like eyes fixed on Jun Moxie. I can die, Chu Chihuan can also die. But, the Supreme Assassin cannot die. The Supreme Assassin is not any other Supreme Assassin, nor is it a Xian cultivation level, but a true Supreme Assassin. The highest honor in the world of assassins. Chu Chi-hun said word by word, I think you should understand the meaning of this sentence better than I do. What if you cannot die? Or, what if Chu Chihuan and the Supreme Assassin will not die? Jun Moxie looked at him seriously. If the Supreme Assassin needs help, then he is not worthy of being called the Supreme Assassin. Chu Chihuan flatly refused, not even letting Jun Moxie explain his intention. I do not need your help. I am even more unwilling to live under someone else's roof. Even if I am under one person and above millions of people, I am not willing. Above the Supreme Assassin, there is only the sky, nothing else. As for the matter of you framing me, you don't have to feel that you owe me anything, because our skills are too similar. If you were famous before me, I would also frame you. Even if we make a move, we don't need to deliberately frame each other. People will naturally suspect each other. Chu Chi-hun laughed heartily and was actually extremely carefree. Perhaps, as you said, you and I didn't know each other before this. No matter what others say, or even if I purposely put the blame on you, I wouldn't feel the slightest bit of remorse. In times of crisis, I would do anything for my own life. There is nothing wrong with it. I have never felt that framing you is wrong. Jun Moxie looked at him with his sharp eyes and said slowly, but don't forget that there is no winner or loser between us. The Supreme Assassin is still undecided, or the sky is above the Supreme Assassin, but you, Chu Chihuan, may not be the only one above you, right? If I have the title of the Supreme Assassin because someone else killed you, for me, it is a disgrace, not an honor. Chu Chihuan's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Jun Moxie. I have lost in terms of fists and kicks. You can have this title with a clear conscience. But are you really willing? Are you going to give up the title of the Supreme Assassin just like that? Although others may not know, but are you really willing? Jun Mo Xia took a step forward and asked in an overbearing manner. I am not willing. What else can I do? Chu Chihuan's eyes flashed with a sharp light. At this time, Mei Xueyan reminded him, Mo Xia, there are many masters coming here from afar. It seems that the fight between the two of you has attracted the attention of some people. Let's talk somewhere else. Chu Chihuan's face turned cold, and his right hand slowly touched the hilt of his sword. Since you are not willing, why don't we use another method to determine the winner? Jun Moxie said casually, you can tell that the people coming are either Supreme Assassins or Superior Supreme Assassins. There are 8 of them. Why don't we use these people as a means of competition? We will use the skills that assassins are best at as stakes. Let's see who the Supreme Assassin is. Let's see who kills more. Chu Chihuan's eyes lit up. It's not enough to compete in numbers, it also depends on who kills faster. Jun Moxie's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. You must know that these people are not only your enemies, but also our enemies. You don't want to be killed by them, but I don't want them to live either. Chu Chihuan laughed and said, I didn't expect that I, Chu Chihuan, would meet a kid like you before I die. This is one of the happiest things in life. Alright, let's compete in this round. Let's see who the Supreme Assassin is. Amidst the laughter, Chu Chihuan and Jun Moxie's bodies disappeared in a flash. They completely disappeared in the snow and in the air. Snowflakes flew in the air. Mei Xuan sighed softly. She waved her hand and a big hole appeared on the snow wall behind her. She and Dongfang Wenxin hid in the hole. The intact snow was recycled again, and the hole was filled up without a trace. This skill was learned from Jun Moxie when he went to the Dongfang family. It was very convenient. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, in just a moment, a few figures arrived and landed on the snowy ground. Then, they ran around the snowy ground. In an instant, they searched the whole snowy valley carefully. Their sharp and vigilant eyes searched every corner. Finally, they stopped at the place where Jun Moxie and Chu Chihuan were fighting. One of them had a face full of vicissitudes. He was skinny and his eyes were shining with a strange light. He was Ma Jiangming from the Supreme Golden City. Beside him, there were two other people wearing the same clothes as him. On the other side, 3 people wearing white robes with long beards came leisurely. They stood on the snowy ground. Their figures were elegant and graceful. They had long swords hanging on their waists. A little later, there were 2 experts from the illusory Blood Sea who were dressed entirely in purple. Their purple robes were very eye-catching in the snowy ground. There were all the experts from the 3 holy lands here. The Supreme Golden City had 1 Superior Supreme and 2 Supremes. Hermitage also had 1 Superior Supreme and 2 Supremes. Although the illusory Blood Sea had the least people, the 2 experts from the illusory Blood Sea were both Superior Supreme experts. Moreover, they looked exactly the same. They were actually twins. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.